Oh yeah, you might be wondering why the screen is blank right now. But don't worry. I have something very special planned. That's right, we're watching the Tucker Carlson interview. Tucker Carlson confronts Ted Cruz on his support for the regime change in Iran. Let's go.
Senator, thank you very much for spending the time to have this conversation.
Good to be
with you. So you've come out for regime change in Iran, as distinct as from taking out the nuclear sites. What does regime change look like in Iran?
Somebody else in charge.
How do you get there?
Look, that ultimately has to be a popular uprising from the people. And it's not a complicated question. Is America better off with a country that has a leader who hates us and wants to kill us, or to have a country with a leader who likes us and wants to be friends with us? And
definitely the latter is better.
Of course.
Yeah.
And so that's not a complicated statement. Look, I believe you look across the world when you have countries that have dictators that are viciously anti-America. Venezuela, Maduro hates us. Would we be better off with Maduro out of power? Absolutely. I want our enemies out of power, and I want our friends in power.
I could not agree more. The question is, how do you get there?
Of course.
We've been trying to kill Maduro.
Yo, why do these Venezuelans hate us so much?
For quite some time. We have troops there.
I don't know that we've been trying to kill Maduro.
Yeah, we have. And I think you know that. And
I don't know that.
Okay, well, as a statement of fact, we have. So
we do have massive sanctions. We tried to pressure him out of office.
Yeah,
I'm not aware of that.
I'm just saying there's a lot of pressure coming from various parts of the U.S. government on that government.
We totally
same the
we would
country
never
of our
do
ancestors,
that.
Cuba.
We would never
you know,
do that.
1959. We've been working on that. Hasn't worked. I think we both agree it's hard
leader.
To do
it absolutely is hard. And look, I think you're reasonable to ask, how do we produce that? And I think there's a distinction between what your objective is and the means to get it. There are all sorts of things I would say we would be better off. We'd be better off in China without Xi there. Should we invade China and topple Xi? Of course not.
Better off with no national debt.
There are lots of things.
Totally.
But it's good to say, all right, what are our objectives?
Right.
And so with the Ayatollah in Iran, saying you're for regime change, I don't view as complicated. I mean, the guy literally leads mobs chanting death to America. So that's not good.
Definitely not good. But the reason I think it's important to get a little more detailed about how that might happen is because there's military action in progress, which we're supporting. And the president has said clearly
why does Iran hate America?
He's focused on eliminating the capacity of the Iranian government to produce nuclear weapons.
It must be because
you
they're
are saying
evil savages.
We need to use military force to effect regime change.
I have not said that.
Oh, I must have.
No, I have not said that once.
Because they're Muslim.
I don't think we need to use military force to do regime change. I said I support it. I would like to see it happen. You asked me how should it happen? A popular uprising. So what I've advocated for. All right, let's step back a second. You and I, we've known each other a long time. I would say we agree on about 80% of the things on Earth.
For sure.
And there are a lot of things, and we can get into the nitty-gritty of foreign policy as much as you want. There are a lot of things on which you and I agree, not just a little bit, but violently.
I totally agree. I was rooting for you in your last campaign, for sure.
Well, thank you. Look, you have been heroic on the border. You've been one of the clearest and best voices in the whole country on securing the border and the absolute crisis we're facing. And in Texas, I see it and live it every day. In COVID,
did he win?
In fact, you may recall, in the middle of the COVID lockdown, I was out walking my dog.
How does Ted Cruz keep winning, bro? I don't get it. I do not understand. Yeah, he's in office. He's an incumbent. That is crazy to me that he is still a sitting senator. What the fuck are we doing? He got elected despite tweeting about hentai with his children. He had hentai time with his children. They were talking about hentai. Like, I don't understand.
I don't world was shut down and we were living in lunatic times. And I called you and said, Tucker, your nightly monologues are the single best thing on television. Like I watch them like an injection of crack. Okay, I'm mixing my metaphor because you don't inject crack, but you get what I'm saying.
Try.
No, I mean, you were standing up and speaking like, what the hell are we doing, in a way that we desperately, desperately needed. And so whether it's securing the border, whether it's the insanity of COVID lockdowns and the vaccine mandates, whether it is the Second Amendment or the First Amendment, you and I agree on a ton of stuff. The 20% where we disagree, I do think is meaningful. And it's mostly in the foreign policy space. And what I would say, if you'll allow me to get a little theoretical, and then I'm happy to get specific.
Yeah.
For a long time, people had perceived two different poles of Republican foreign policy. There have been interventionists, and those have been people like John McCain and Lindsey Graham, George W. Bush. And there have been isolationists. And the most prominent of those have been Ron Paul and Rand Paul, and there are others. And people perceive those are the two choices. You got to be one or the other. I've always thought both were wrong. I don't agree with either one. The way I view my own foreign policy...
I'm with you, by the way, for whatever it's worth.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Okay, good.
I don't know who set up that binary, but there are lots of choices, actually.
I mean, people sort of naturally fall into... I think they want to classify people, and they're like, okay, you're one or the other, and you got to be all or nothing. And the interventionists, it seems, have never seen a country they didn't want to invade, and that doesn't make any sense to me. And the
Yeah, so what he's saying here is important, but also kind of not, also kind of a nothing, and I'll explain why. Okay, the reason that he's even talking about this is to like market himself as a deep thinker. I'm not like those other Republican. He's basically saying like I'm not like the pansy ass Republicans that don't want to go to war, and I'm also not like the insatiable bloodlust Republicans like George W. Bush and Dick Cheney. But anyway, the distinction doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, if you're a Republican, if you're a Democrat, you support the continued military imperialism that our country is forcing on the world. And no matter what, if you support that, you are a psychopath. You are a evil person with insatiable bloodlust. That's what I think, anyway. But let's hear Ted Cruz talk about the difference between pussy-ass Republicans and himself.
Isolationists, I think, don't take the threats to America seriously, and I think that's naive and it doesn't work. And so my view, I consider myself a third point on the triangle. And what I describe that as is that I am a non-interventionist hawk, which sounds a little weird, but what do I mean by that? I mean the central touch point for U.S. foreign policy and for any question of military intervention should be the vital national security interest of the United States. Yeah. How does this make America safer? How does this protect Americans? If it does, we should be strong. And actually, another way of conceiving what I'm saying, I'm speaking theoretically, but Reagan referred to it as peace through strength. And actually, I think Donald Trump's foreign policy is very much what I'm describing, a non-interventionist hawk, where he understands, that, and I think this is historically true, the best way to avoid war is being strong. That weakness and isolationism, I think, encourages war. So going back to regime change, where you started in Iran.
Just to make, I don't think I disagree with anything you've said. So we may not be that far apart, really, because you said that the single criterion for making decisions about America's foreign policy is America's national interest.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah. Which is also America first. That's another way of putting that as well. I think
it's the definition of it.
Yeah.
It's hardly breaking news. The U.S. dollar has been gravely devalued by Washington money printing. They print money out of thin air. And
I'm not going to watch his ad. I'm not going to do that. I'm skipping it. Fuck you, Tucker Carlson.
You and I disagree. And
bitch.
All right, let me contrast it when Obama. So I think we are. And from what you've said publicly, I think on Iran in particular, you and I disagree. And all right, let me contrast it when Obama was president. When Obama was president, you remember he talked about wanting to have military action against Syria. Mm-hmm. And at the time, I tried to keep an open mind to it. I said, okay, let me listen to the commander-in-chief, describe to me how this is in America's interest and what your plan is. And Bashar Assad was a bad guy. He was killing his own citizens, and he had chemical weapons that were very dangerous. I could conceive of a commander-in-chief laying out a plan for, okay, we're going to go in and say, grab the chemical weapons and leave. Like, I could see that if there was a real threat to America and there was a plan to prevent that, I could see supporting that. So I wanted to hear what he had to say. And I listened both in classified briefings and public questioning. And number one, their public defense of it was incoherent. So John Kerry said, we're going to engage in an unbelievably small strike. I think that's a quote. I'm like, okay, and to do what? At the time, there were 9 major rebel Islamic groups in Syria. I'm like, okay, I agree, Bashar Assad's a bad guy. You topple him. and one of the 9 other groups takes over, 7 of them were affiliated with radical Islamic terrorism. You had Al-Qaeda and al-Nusra. I'm like, wait, how is it better to have lunatics who hate us in charge? Assad's a bad guy, but I don't want worse guys in charge. Obama administration couldn't give an answer to that. And ultimately, when you press them, John Kerry in particular I pressed, and he would say, well, we need to defend international norms. Like, what the hell's an international norm? I don't know what it is, but I'm not interested in putting U.S. servicemen and women in harm's way to defend one.
Amen. So
I opposed the Syria attack and opposed it vocally. And it was interesting. Rand and I agreed. Rand's a friend of mine. But we agreed with that position for different reasons. What I was asking is I think the question we should ask, how does this make America safer? The Obama administration couldn't give me an answer, so I opposed it. I think Iran is very different.
Let me ask what you think of how Syria wound up, because Bashar al-Assad now lives in Moscow.
Yeah.
He was taken out by our allies, and he's been replaced by a radical Islamist who was affiliated with ISIS. So is that a win or no?
Unclear. Look, Syria's a mess, so I've consistently opposed.
But we had a secular leader in a religious and ethnically diverse country. Now we have a religious extremist, Islamic religious extremist, who's overseen the purge of Christians and Alawites. Is that better? That doesn't seem like a win.
One of the things you said is he was taken out by our allies. I don't think that's right. Israel didn't take Assad out. What happened, and I'll tell you.
What about Turkey?
Turkey didn't take him out. So it was interesting. I had a long...
How did Assad get kicked out?
Yeah. When Netanyahu was in D.C. a couple months ago, he and I sat down for a couple of hours. He's a good friend of mine. And we talked actually about Syria. He made an interesting point that I've not heard anywhere else, in that he said he believes what toppled Assad was when Israel took out Nasrallah. Nasrallah was the head of Hezbollah, and they took him out. And he made an interesting point. He said, it's fascinating how a charismatic leader, and Bibi said, look, Nasrallah was a very effective terrorist leader. And when they took him out, that power base was supporting Assad. And that ultimately, in Bibi's analysis, removed the support from Assad and toppled him. But they weren't trying to take out Assad. My view now, I don't know.
So you don't think that, and I don't, it is very confusing, and I don't know that anyone really knows all the details, but you don't think that Israel or Turkey or NATO ally Turkey played any role in toppling Assad?
I don't know. I don't know that they did. Look, my understanding of that, they clearly took out Nasrallah and Hezbollah. They've decimated Hezbollah, but Hezbollah was waging war on them. So decimating Hezbollah was very good for Israel and very good for America, too. I mean, Hezbollah hated us. I would put Assad in the category of an unintended consequence, and whether it's good or bad, I don't know. I think time will tell.
For the United States.
Yeah, for the United States. I think time will tell the new leadership there. You're right to be concerned. Let me step back and let's talk regime change generally. I mentioned Syria. I also opposed the Iraq War. I think the Iraq War was a serious mistake. And we have a pattern, and going back to this binary of the interventionist and the isolationist. The intervention...
Why is he doing this? Why is he doing this interview? He just looks terrible. He looks terrible. He's stumbling over his fucking words. He's like, I don't know this, I don't know that. We got to go to war with Iran. We got to go to war with Iran. We got to do it. We got to do it. I'm waiting for him to say it. They have WMDs. They have WMDs, bro. Nobody's buying it this time. Nobody's fucking buying it. Who the fuck believes this shit? And why? We're gonna fall for it again, aren't we? We definitely are, man.
Advocate over and over again. There's a bad guy. There's a dictator who's doing bad things to his people. And they say, let's go topple him. And you have dictators in the Middle East who are killing radical Islamic terrorists. We come in and topple them. The radical Islamic terrorists take over and they start killing Americans. In my view, how the heck does that help us? Like, Saddam Hussein was a horrible human being. He murdered and tortured people. Unequivocally bad guy. But it got much worse after we toppled him. And you ended up having ISIS rise up. I mean, that was the cause of ISIS, was toppling Saddam Hussein. Same thing in Libya. You had Gaddafi, another horrible guy. That under Obama, we toppled him. And you ended up having radical Islamic warlords taking over. And so, and it's the question I asked in Syria. Okay, well, what's the plan? And how is this good or bad for the United States?
Where did these religious extremist factions come from, anyway? I wonder. We're going to need a history
And so I don't
lesson.
think, with Iran, I view Iran as very different from Iraq.
But up to that point, you say we disagree. I don't hear really anything. I'm not quite sure what happened in Syria, but I don't know, so, right? But other than that, I don't hear anything I disagree with at all.
Yeah.
Sounds like we're in a complete agreement. I wonder, though, is there a successful regime change that the United States supported that you're aware of in the last 100 years?
Sure. Defeating the Soviet Union. And the Soviet Union collapsing, winning the Cold War. That was the most consequential step for U.S. national security interests of our lifetimes.
Okay.
And
so you would classify that as a regime change that we affected?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Look, you and I are in my office. We're sitting next to a painting of Reagan in front of the Brandenburg Gate. And up top are the words, "Tear down this wall," in German, in the style of the graffiti.
Right.
And I think those are the most important words any leader has said in modern times. And if you look at how Reagan waged the Cold War, and Reagan is very much my model for how to, I actually think how Reagan took on the Soviet Union is exactly how we should take on China. Now, starting from the point, look, Reagan was not an interventionist. In 8 years, the biggest country Reagan ever invaded was Britain.
That'll work.
He was very reluctant to use U.S. military force.
He didn't respond after the 83 barracks bombing.
You're right. He made the judgment that the risk exceeded the benefits. And that's a very rational decision to make.
Look, what Ted Cruz here is saying, I don't know what specifically he's going to say we should do to China that we did to Russia back then, but no, it wouldn't fucking work. Of course it wouldn't fucking work. What the fuck are you talking about? The way that we got to Russia, the way that we toppled the USSR, was with embargoes, was with trades. Okay, we fucked over all of their allies. And we toppled their governments. Okay, we didn't just go straight for the king. Okay, this is fucking chess. You gotta take out the little guys first. Okay, Cuba. Afghanistan. And yes, Iraq as well. Like these South American governments, Nicaragua, that's mainly what Russia was after at the time. They got annihilated by us, by like doing, it was slow, but it was a slow burn, but like, and they could have done something about it. Russia could have ended up like turning the tables, I think, but because of who they had in charge, it wasn't going to happen. The only good timeline for the USSR is the one where Lenin survives into old age. But that's not the world that we lived in.
And it's reflected. Trump has made those things.
Yeah, but anyway, we can't do that to China because China is fucking styling on us. They're fucking stunting. They're hitting Fortnite poses. Okay, they're just like, they're dancing on our grave, okay? Like, they're just doing, they're making us hold the L. Whatever the fuck you want to call it. Like, we do not have this, we're not in the same position that we were 40 fucking years ago, dumbass. 50 years ago. We're not in the same position.
Decisions where
idiot.
He is willing to use military force, but he very much asks, okay, is this good or bad for America? Does this endanger U.S. servicemen and women or not? And one of the points about the Cold War, look, nobody in their right mind wanted a shooting war between America and the Soviet Union. The two biggest nuclear powers on Earth firing bullets at each other is really unhealthy for human beings. Same thing's true with China. Nobody with any sense says, hey, let's go to war with China. That's really dumb, and a whole lot of people could die.
Yeah, and that's probably what's going to end up happening. Okay, the U.S. is gearing up for a war with China. Of course we are. And I'm not talking a Cold War. I'm talking a hot war with bullets. Okay, why? Because China is growing, and it's scary, and they want... What do they want? They want that little island. They want that funny little island. What's it called again? I forgot. But yeah, they need the island, okay, for the computer parts. That's what they want.
Joe, we've got lots of tools short of sending the Marines to fight against a regime. And one of the most important tools is the bully pulpit. And so when I say I support regime change, I actually think just simply laying out what the Ayatollah does. And so I spend a lot of time, I speak to Iranian dissident groups. I speak out against human rights abuses. I think shining a light on the depravity of leaders is a really powerful tool that America has.
Should we limit our activity to that?
It depends. Again,
because the U.S. government pays opposition groups, militarized opposition groups in Iran to overthrow the government. We've done it in a lot of different places, as you know. I'm not saying it's bad, but that's very different from what you're describing. You're saying we're making a moral case, as we did for 7 years with the Soviets. Our system works, yours doesn't.
Yep.
And I think we made a credible case for that. And we beat them over 70 years economically.
And that was a huge part of it.
Right. I think everyone would agree that was the main part of it. We didn't beat them in Vietnam. North Korea.
The main part of it, but it was tied to a military buildup. So I think it was two things. It was one, the clarity. So Reagan came in and he described the Soviet Union as an evil empire.
Right.
And all of the...
We didn't beat North Korea. Yeah, we just barred them from trading with any other country on the fucking planet. So they had to be on life support from USSR and China for the last century. Yeah, but anyway, we lost North Korea. We totally lost. We lost North Korea. Yeah.
Intelligentsia in D.C., all the Democrats, all the media, they're like, what a horrible thing to say. You can't say that. Reagan went to the United Kingdom and he said, Marxism, Leninism will end up on the ash heap of history. People were horrified. They asked him, all right, what's your strategy in the Cold War? He said, very simple. We win, they lose. And that was all viewed as sort of a Philistine simplicity. And I think it was exactly right. And laying that out, speaking... Do you know the backstory behind the Berlin Wall speech?
Yeah, I do. Yes.
You probably know Peter Robinson, who was the speechwriter.
Yes.
So 3 times the State Department deleted those words from that speech. And 3 times Reagan wrote it back. And the State Department argued, they said, Mr. President, you can't say this. This is too bellicose. This is too provocative. And my favorite, they said, this is too unrealistic. The Berlin Wall will stand till the end of time. And Reagan said, look, this is the whole point of the speech. And less than 3 years after Reagan gave that speech, the Berlin Wall was torn to the ground.
I hate American like mythos. I hate it, especially with the Reagan era. Okay, because like, yeah, I'm sure everybody in 1989 believed that the Berlin Wall would stand until the end of time. Yeah, that's what they thought. What I'm saying is, at that point, Gorbachev was in office. The fuck are you talking about? Like, no, it was a done deal. It was over. The USSR was over by then. You are insane if you thought that. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there were people telling Reagan that, but it's so funny.
And it wasn't knocked down by American Army tanks. We didn't shoot missiles at it. It was shining truth and light that tore it down. It was also rebuilding the American military. It was what was then pejoratively called Star Wars, where the Soviet Union, their economy couldn't match our military buildup, and it bankrupted them. That's an example of peace through strength.
I wonder, is there anybody who was alive in 1989 who wouldn't trade that America for the one we live in now? There's not one person, I don't think.
Oh, sure.
But, just the basic metrics, debt, suicide rate, life expectancy, I wonder why, after that victory, America didn't thrive in the way that we thought that it would, that I thought that it would. My family was involved in that. We were very focused on it in my house. We won. And I wonder 2 things. Why didn't the United States kind of declare victory and make some sort of arrangement with Russia that allowed mutual prosperity rather than continuing a Cold War? And second, I wonder why the United States didn't get a lot better. Why don't we have better infrastructure? Why don't we have fewer homeless? Why do we have all these drugs? If we won, why does our country look like this? I walked across from Union Station this morning, as you do, I'm sure, every day. And all those people lying in the street, sleeping outside. It's like, what is that?
We're sorry to say it, but this is not a very safe country. Walk through Oakland or Philadelphia. Get innocent from the first moment. Berna, it's a person I have to your door.
There's no doubt there are really dangerous forces in our society. Some of it is politics and some of it is culture. And one of the mistakes people make in politics is thinking everything is politics. So the political answer, which I happen to believe, is we went much further down the road of liberalism. You look at Bill Clinton, who inherited the peace dividend of the Cold War being over, and moved us more to the left, and then Obama accelerated it a lot. So there are lots of bad economic policies, but I also think they're cultural things. The loss of faith,
I agree with
the loss
all of
family.
That. I know what you're going to say, and I agree 100%. I bet there's not one word that I would disagree with. All I'm saying is,
liberals,
I think it's important to step back and ask.
But I actually think Russia has very little to do with it. So,
well, that's kind of the point that I'm trying to make, which is we're all sort of focused on beating our adversaries abroad, but what is victory worth if our own country becomes what it is now? And maybe we're spending a little too much time focused abroad and not enough time focused on the people sleeping outside Union Station.
So, look, I absolutely think we need to focus at home, emphatically, and we need to focus on prosperity. We need to focus on reducing the debt, reducing spending, empowering people, low taxes, small businesses. American free enterprise. It's the most powerful force for fighting poverty the world has ever seen.
Oh, my God.
1,000% there.
Oh, my fucking God, dude. This shit makes me so angry when they're like, like all these, we have all these problems, like homeless, like starving, like people without utilities, without running water, without clean water. And then they're like the free market. the free market will solve this problem. Like, there's a disconnect there. Like, you're not making a connection here, bro. How is the free market going to fix this? We've been doing the free market. We've been doing the free market. And everything is the way it is. What? How did this happen?
I also recognize it is a dangerous world. And part of the responsibility of leaders, part of President Trump's responsibility, is to keep America safe. But let's go back to where we started.
But can I ask, you've been in the district a long time in D.C., so have I. And the city's way more dangerous, and Congress runs this city.
No, it's a complete crapple.
So I'm saying, like, no Iranian's ever going to kill me. I could get carjacked here. And I just don't understand how the Congress could run the city and focus on the dangers of Iran when the city is like garbage. Okay. It's garbage.
But Congress doesn't run the city. We could.
Congress does run the city. It's in the Constitution.
It's in the Constitution, but they've given home rule, so it's a Democrat mayor.
You control the Congress.
I'd vote for it, but it is a question of math.
Okay, but I'm just saying, like, why? How can people ignore? It's like, if my own kids are drug addicts, but I'm focused on my neighbor's kids, it's like I'm neglecting my own kids. And there's a sense in which the Congress is neglecting the country that elected them in favor of this relentless focus on other people's problems. That's the way it feels as an American.
Look, there are lots of problems in America that we need to fix. Why is D.C. a pit? Because you have a mayor and a Democrat city council that won't let police officers arrest bad guys. And in every city you see across the country, whether it's New York, whether it's Chicago.
Are you gonna arrest all the homeless people? Are you gonna arrest all the homeless people? What is your plan? The sissy libs won't let us arrest everyone? That's why the city sucks? Are you fucking serious?
Whether it's LA, whether it's San Francisco, if you have Democrats, we see the LA riots where they won't let people be arrested. All right.
Then why not work in regime change here? Why not use the bully pulpit?
What do you think I do every day?
I never see a Republican senator stand up and say, I just walked to work this morning over people dying of drug ODs. We're going to shut this place down unless they fix it. They're mad about Putin. Like, what did Putin do to Washington? Nothing.
Look, in terms of regime change, let's talk this week.
Dude, Tucker fucking loves Putin. Holy shit. That's his best friend over there. Tucker, you need to move on, bro. You are in danger if you keep talking about him like that. Trump ain't gonna keep talking about him like that. He was before he got elected, but nah, bro. Like, Putin's not playing ball. I think he's in a whole different game. He's playing like he's on a completely different court right now. He does not give a fuck about Trump or you. Especially, he never gave a fuck about you, but he certainly don't give a fuck about Trump anymore.
The riots in LA, I've made very clear that the cause of those riots are Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass. And when you elect communists who hate America, who stop law enforcement from arresting criminals, you get what you get on the street.
Amen, I agree.
My in-laws are Californians, and they're wonderful people.
Yeah, it's the communist. It's the communist. Ted, I am from one of the poorest states in the country and the most Republican state in the country. And I gotta say, I don't think that it's a lot better here. I don't think it's a lot better here in Alabama. I really don't. I could go to California. I see homeless people here. I see violence on the street here. What the fuck do you mean it's so much worse in California? Shut the fuck up, man.
Heidi grew up on the Central Coast of California, and I remember I was texting with my mother-in-law, and I think I sent her a video of criminals going into a store and just looting in California.
Matters. Okay, California is still a country, a state. It's basically a fucking country. It has a big enough economy, but it is still a state that is run by liberals, by free market guys. They love the free market. Okay, they love it. They love the free market. They keep doing it. They keep doing free market shit. And then you're like, oh, they're actually communist, and that's why it sucks. Okay, man. Okay.
And her response, she said something like, well, this is really terrible. I wish we could. It's a shame we can't do anything about this. So yes, you can. Go in and arrest them. Throw their butts in jail. Put them in handcuffs. 100%. And it stops.
Exactly.
And so we know how to fix these things. And D.C. is, I think D.C. voted, if I remember right, 92% Democrat. Democrat policies don't work, and they destroy every community that they are in charge of.
Then why don't Republicans assert their constitutional authority over the city? Don't they control the Congress?
Yes, I'd be all for it.
Who's against it?
Susan Collins is really vocally against it. So on questions of home rule, so for example, let's take an issue you and I care a lot about, the COVID lockdowns. I had a couple of years ago in the middle of them. D.C. was proposing, the D.C. school district was proposing throwing out of school any child that was not vaccinated. And at the time, if I remember correctly, it was something like 40% of the African-American students in D.C. were not vaccinated. So they're talking about literally throwing out 40% of the kids at public school. And so I had a vote on the Senate floor to say, look, they can't throw kids out of school for this. And we ended up having a big argument, and part of the argument was home rule, where there was, and Susan was the most vocal Republican that's like, no, we have to let D.C. run it. I'm like, why? Constitution gives us the power to do it. And it ended up, by the way, every single Democrat, all of them, voted in favor of the D.C. public schools being able to throw out 40% of the black kids from school. And I said, look, you throw a kid out of school, you got a 14, 15-year-old boy, you throw him out of school.
They hate black people. They hate black people. That's why they did it. That's why they did it. I'm not fact-checking this, by the way. I don't know if it's true. I don't know. I'll have to take his word on it, consequently. But, like, let's do that. Let's take his word on it. Let's assume he's telling the truth, okay? Should we allow... during a pandemic, should we allow people to gather, children to gather in school when they haven't been vaccinated? Let's think about this. Children are young. They are stupid. Their brains aren't developed, okay? They don't wash their hands enough. They get sick a lot more often than adults. Also, they can just do online school, man. And, like, yeah, the education from online school, it's not great. It sucks. So does in-person. It all sucks. It's all garbage. Education in this country is terrible no matter what. Especially in D.C., especially in inner-city D.C. schools. So, yeah, if you're not vaccinated, get the fuck out of school. Go home. I think that was a good call back then. I think that was a good idea, okay, to save lives. Fuck education. Think about this. Ted Cruz is talking right now. Right now, he is talking about this like it was some, like, big W for him. Like, it would, like, oh, look at how, like, this is how virtuous I am. I wanted to keep kids in school. He valued those kids getting a shitty, garbage American education over their lives. He said, yeah, it's a better idea to let these kids die than to let them be uneducated by the American state. The shittiest education you can get in the first world, in the Western world. Dumbass.
You know what's going to happen next. He's going to join a gang. He's going to engage in crimes. He's going to engage in drugs. He could be dead within 5 years if that kid doesn't get an education. And the Democrats were more than happy to say, we don't care. Right now, our religion is get the vaccine or to hell with you.
But can you see, I mean, once again, I couldn't agree with you more, but can you feel the frustration of people, including your voters, every American, at the emphasis on foreign countries and the threat we supposedly face, a lot of which is fake, obviously, over the kind of slowly unfolding tragedy of what's happening to our country? The dollars spent, the aid packages to Ukraine to pay the retirement of civil servants in a country that we have nothing to do with, the endless support for Israel, very expensive, when people are literally buying groceries on credit in the United States. Can you feel like nothing against Ukraine or Israel or any other country?
What do you have to say about that, Ted? The support for Israel, very expensive. How much support do we give to Israel?
Well, you tell me. You vote.
How much support do we give to Israel? Next, he's going to say, actually, $20 billion isn't that much. It's not that much, actually. It's a drop in the bucket.
Right. Yeah, it's about $3 billion a year is the military assistance.
Mm-hmm. Is that the only assistance?
Yeah, we just have military assistance.
I know I said $20 billion. Okay, I know. They have... Look, they were doing $2 billion a year to send them $20 billion over the course of 10 years. Now we're sending them $3 billion a year. Every year. For the next, 15 years. Okay, we are sending them a lot of money. And yes, it's not that much relative to our, military budget. I know, I think we need to cut that shit too. I think we need to cut that shit out. But, what the fuck are we doing wasting money on this country that is just, violently lobbing bombs at anybody near them that is brown? That's a really bad idea in that region. They're going to start World War III. They might be doing it as we speak.
Israel does not have additional assistance. There's an MOU, a memorandum of understanding, and it's $3 billion a year.
So what is it costing to support the bombing campaign to protect Israel right now from Iran?
So I don't know right now, but I'll tell you this. Let's go back to the touchstone on foreign policy. American interest.
It doesn't fucking
matter. Our
matter.
support, our military support for Israel,
I don't care
is massively...
it's funny how he's like, how much is the bombing campaign costing us? Like, no, the amount of money for the bombing campaign doesn't fucking matter. Okay, yeah, we send them a lot of money. We can talk about that. We can talk about how it's a waste of money. That's fine. I think that is a fine angle. But approaching the bombing campaign from a fiscal point of view is stupid. It's stupid. You want to know why? Because it doesn't fucking matter how much money they're spending on bombing these guys when it could just start World War III. Like, that should be the point of attack here, is that Israel might start World War III. Oops. Oops. This ancient ally of the U.S. is starting World War III. Whoops. Like, that is what I don't want to happen. That is what I have always been worried about happening ever since I was a child and I learned about Israel. I was like, damn, they're like surrounded by a bunch of people that are their enemies, and they are an ally to our state, and they're surrounded by people that hate our government because of what we've done to them. And even as a stupid Republican, I recognized this when I was a child, but I was able to justify it by thinking like, oh, well, you know, they'll just, our country will protect them. Like, our military is on top always, so. But, it looks like our position in that is starting to slip.
In America's national security interest, and it benefits us enormously.
Well, before we can make independent judgments about whether or not that's true, and I'm certainly open to it, I think we need to know what it costs. So what's the annual cost of defending Israel? Do you know?
$3 billion a year.
No, that's the aid. But I mean, the cost of the weapons, for example, the cost of U.S. personnel there, the cost of moving ships to...
well, I'm going to go get in the shower. Let's go.
Let's keep watching. Which we're doing right now, the cost of moving tankers, all of that. Do we know what the cost is?
So look, the last week, I don't know, and there's some lag when the administration, under the Constitution, the commander-in-chief has control of the armed forces, and so President Trump has made some decisions that we'll know the cost over time, but I don't know the last week. I don't have visibility on that. The annual cost is $3 billion. It's a 10-year memorandum of understanding, and that's the principal driver of the cost. But let me make a point. We get massive benefits from Israel. Israel shares... The Mossad is one of the best intelligence sources on the planet. The enemies of Israel, the people who hate Israel, they all hate us. It's almost a perfect overlap. And so if we try...
That's crazy. That's so crazy. What? What? For anybody who doesn't know, by the way, Mossad is a terrorist organization. It is considered to be the CIA of Israel. But somehow Mossad is like 100 times more unhinged than our CIA, which is a crazy thing to say out loud if you know anything about the CIA. But yeah, Mossad is an evil organization, in my opinion. It is bad. It is bad, and no, it is not worth it for the U.S. Okay, and like, by the way, even if you're an Israel defender, to say that Israel is worth it because of what Mossad does for America is crazy. What do they do? What, did they bomb Lebanon for the U.S.? Did they bomb Iraq for the U.S.? Is Israel currently bombing Iran for the U.S. as well? I don't think so. I think they're doing it with the expectation that we will help them, that we will join them.
We tried to recreate, if we're just trying to defend America, we tried to recreate the national security benefits of our alliance with Israel. It would cost, I don't know, $30 billion, $300 billion.
So can you elaborate? And again, I'm going into this as someone who's always liked Israel and still does. But I also think at this point, given where we are, it's fair to ask rational questions about what the benefits are.
Good.
So does Mossad share all of its intelligence with us?
Oh, probably not, but they share a lot. We don't share all of our intelligence with them, but we share a lot. It's a close alliance.
Do they spy domestically in the United States?
Oh, they probably do, and we do as well. And friends and allies spy on each other. And I assume all of our allies spy on us.
And that's okay with you?
You know what? One of the things about being a conservative is that you're not naive and utopian.
That's okay with you?
You don't think humans are all... Part of the reason socialism doesn't work is
you think he's
the mantra from each according to his abilities to each according to his needs doesn't work. As a conservative, I assume people act in their rational self-interest.
So it's conservative to pay people to spy on you?
It's conservative to recognize that human beings act in their own self-interest, and every one of our friends spies on us, and I'm not...
Do you like it? That's my question. I'm not asking whether they have motive to do it. Of course they do. I understand that, and by the way, I'm not mad at them. But you're an American lawmaker, so I just want to know. Hold on, I want to know your attitude. Yeah. You said that your guiding principle, in fact, the only principle, the only criterion.
I said guiding, the overwhelming. I wouldn't say only.
Is it in America's interest? Is it in America's interest for Israel to spy on us, including on the president?
It is in America's interest to be closely allied with Israel because we get huge benefits for it. And you want to see the clearest.
But I just want to stop on this line for a second. That it takes place, as you know. And including on the president of the United States and several precedents. And I just want to know if that's okay and why is it okay? Wouldn't an American lawmaker say to a client state, you're not allowed to spy on us? I'm sorry. I know why you want to. I'm not mad at you, but you're not allowed to.
Sure.
And I don't care for it. I don't want to be spied on by you. It's kind of weird not to say that, but you don't seem able to say that.
Sure, I would say don't spy on us. They're going to anyway. And by the way, the Brits are, the Canadians are. Like, I don't think...
Well, I'm not for that at all. I think it's disgusting. But we don't actually pay their... we're not their most meaningful sponsor. We're not sort of paying for the operations of the British government.
I got to say, and this is, it's weird. We're talking about isolationists, the obsession with Israel. Why is Israel...
Oh, I don't think I'm obsessed with Israel.
Okay, but I think a lot of people are. And like the question, Israel spies on us. Well, so does every other country. Why are you mad at Israel?
I guess
you're obsessed with Israel, man.
I'm hardly the one who... I've never taken money from the Israel lobby. Have you?
Taken money from the Israel...
From AIPAC.
So AIPAC raises a lot of money for me, but it's actually a misnomer because the people who raise money are individuals.
Oh, shit.
So it's not the PAC itself, but they're individual members who believe in the American-Israeli friendship and relationship.
Is AIPAC a foreign lobby?
No, it's an American lobby. It's the AIPAC stands for the America-Israeli Political Action Committee.
What does it lobby for?
So, to be honest, not a whole...
Is it an American lobby? What does it lobby for?
Not effectively. Listen, I came into Congress 13 years ago with the stated intention of being the leading defender of Israel in the United States Senate. I've worked every day to do that. AIPAC, a lot of times... AIPAC, I wish were much more effective. Like, there are folks online who are the fever swamp of terrified of AIPAC, and AIPAC...
I'm not terrified of AIPAC at all. You're the one who seems a little uncomfortable when I'm asking.
No, I'm not uncomfortable at all.
I'm just asking what AIPAC does. My understanding, having known a lot of people who work at AIPAC, is that it lobbies on behalf of the Israeli government.
Wrong.
Oh, okay.
America has thousands of colleges and universities, and a lot of them, unfortunately, are basically just scams.
Really,
it's one of those things nobody really wants to talk about. Real...
Now
teachers America and grits are good.
You are so dumb, Tucker. This is your best clip. This is your best clip, and you put an ad in the middle of it? Are you fucking serious? Anyway, they're both kind of correct with what he was saying, okay? Because Israel, the lobby, AIPAC, is not just a lobby for Israel. It is an institution that defends Israel as much as it can, as much as it is able to. Okay, that's what it does. And yeah, it donates money, it buys politicians, of course. That is what lobbies do. Okay, and anyway, I think that it is to be expected that Ted Cruz will say stuff, and that's kind of Tucker's point here. Of course he will defend Israel. He gets a ton of money from AIPAC. That's
and
the
they
point.
Make this country better.
The motherfuckers that want us to go to war for Israel just so happen to be getting lots of money from Israel. Huh, that's crazy.
Zero cost, just the truth. That's tuckerforhillsdale.com to enroll for free.
When was the last time AIPAC took a position that deviated from Prime Minister Netanyahu?
All the time.
Anyone?
Okay. Let me go back and give a little history. If you want to do a deep dive on AIPAC...
I don't. I want to do a shallow dive.
No,
I want to get to the core question. AIPAC is lobbying for a foreign government. And I don't... It's not. It's lobbying for the United States?
It is lobbying for a strong U.S.-Israeli relationship.
Okay. So it has nothing to do with the foreign government?
It wants America and Israel to be closely allied.
Okay.
And in order to do that, you need the broader support of your voter base. Okay, right? That is why these politicians spend so much time defending Israel. Okay? Because the the obvious answer of the Israel question is right in front of you constantly. It's right in front of your face. They are live streaming a genocide. So the answer is right there, and that's why so much attention has to be paid to defending them. Without the propaganda, without the support from politicians, they would not, like, regular people would not be on board with this. But normies, they don't really pay attention to this shit. They're just like, oh, they're like, it's like the land of the Jews, and like we're like helping them. That's like whatever is cool. People don't pay close attention. Normies don't until wartime comes. Okay, until the bombs start flying. And then it's like, oh, like, we're not really on board with this. Like, I don't think we should get in on this, okay? And the politicians are like, well, we don't give a fuck. We're going to do it anyway. Okay, however, even though they give off that, like, that vibe, and even though that is basically what they're saying all the time, people like Ted Cruz, like, we got to go to war, fuck you, fuck your sons, fuck what you think. They can't just do it. They can't. They need wide consent. They need the consent of the public. Okay, why? Because they need people to send to the front lines. They need to send people to die there. And like, people just are not going to send their sons away to die in the desert for nothing. People don't want to do that. But it's really not that hard to convince them, okay? But they're failing because, like, once again, they are live streaming a live genocide that is going on right now. Like, you can pull up videos, you could just watch the news even. You could even just watch the news, and yeah, they're gonna, like, hit you with a ton of propaganda about how Israel is, it has the right to defend itself. But you're still gonna see the violence that Israel is doing. And I think that people are struggling to, get behind that, to support that.
It's lobbying on behalf of the interests of another country.
So that's not true at all. And if
not true.
No.
How much contact do you think AIPAC leaders have with the government of Israel?
No idea. I imagine some. I think the government of Israel is often frustrated with AIPAC because AIPAC's not nearly strong enough.
Do you think there's any coordination between the government of Israel and AIPAC?
Do they talk? Sure. If you're lobbying for more U.S.-Mexico trade, would you talk to people in the U.S. and Mexico and the government? Sure. Like if.
So I'm not mad about that. There are a million countries that lobby Washington. I like a lot of those countries, including Israel.
But AIPAC are Americans. But
hold on. There are tons of Americans who lobby on behalf of foreign governments. I know them. I'm related to some of them. I know how it works. I'm from here. So my question is not, is it outrageous that foreign governments lobby the United States? They all do, okay, including Israel. My only question is, why don't we admit that is what's happening? You're denying it, but it's true.
Yeah, and why aren't they
registered? Because he's a politician, dumbass. Because any politician would do that. This is not a good gotcha, okay? Like, Americans aren't gonna, like, look at this and be like, oh yeah, like, owned, okay? Owned. I don't think so. Maybe some of them will. Maybe they're,
like, foreign lobby, because they're not.
Racist.
They're not a foreign lobby.
No, they're not. And this is there's a fever swamp. Look,
it's not a fever swamp. These are very reasonable questions, and you've accused me of being obsessed with Israel, which I'm not.
I actually haven't. I've said
isolationist. And being feverish about it, which I'm not at all. I find it's a very tender spot when you ask it, and I don't know why.
So, Tucker, all right, let's go back. I was first elected to the Senate in 2012. I came in Obama's second term. And I actually saw AIPAC be badly wounded in a way they never came back from. And the second term is when Obama did the Iran nuclear deal. And the Iran nuclear deal, I think, was catastrophic. And AIPAC went all in lobbying against it.
Yeah.
And they failed. And I was the leading opponent of the Iran nuclear deal.
Oh, I know. They definitely failed, yes.
They failed. And what happened, the Obama White House told every Democrat, when I got here, there used to be real bipartisan support for Israel. That has largely disappeared. And it's the Obama nuclear deal that caused it, because the Obama White House told every Democrat, pick. You either stand with Israel or you're a Democrat and you stand with the Obama White House. And almost every single Democrat member of Congress said, I'm a Democrat first, to hell with Israel.
That is crazy. To hell with Israel? Bro, Obama sent them $20 billion on his way out. On his way out. That's what he sent them when he was leaving. $20 billion. You're either with Israel or with Obama. Yeah, Barack Hussein Obama. Okay, look, once again, this is an L for Ted Cruz, because nobody is going to buy this shit except for the most racist, unhinged motherfuckers in the Republican Party. Okay, anyway, Obama was and is an Israel supporter. Okay, of course he is. The fuck? What the fuck are we talking about? He let Iran have a strict nuclear process for creating nuclear energy. A strict process which required representatives from a special coalition in the UN to investigate, where they sabotaged their nuclear sites, allegedly, and murdered their scientists, allegedly. Okay, like, it is not... I'm sorry, America. Nobody is ever going to convince me that it's wrong for Iran to have nuclear technology. It is a process for creating energy so that you don't have to, use coal or other fossil fuels. It's good. It's a good thing. Yes, you can create bombs with it. Okay, that's what the United Nations is for. And anyway, even if Iran did have nukes, which they don't, and even if they were making nukes, which they aren't yet, I wouldn't give a fuck. Why? Because they are super peaceful, okay? They are a very peaceful nation, and they are right next to Israel, basically. They're not like neighboring them. But yeah, like, they've recently been bombed by Israel, who has nukes. They have nukes. Israel has nukes. Iran, they should be able to have them too. Why not? Why? I don't get it. Because they're our enemy. They are our enemy. We must stomp them into dust. We must be able to annihilate them at any moment without retaliation. It's like, it's so insane mode. It's so crazy. Iran is an incredibly peaceful country. Let them have nukes. Let them defend themselves. Do not, please do not invade them. Holy fuck.
And then I watched as AIPAC, every one of those Democrats got reelected, and AIPAC did nothing about it. And it dramatically reduced AIPAC's influence.
I watched it happen.
And by the way, I told AIPAC, I said, look, the analogy, if the NRA was supporting a bunch of politicians and cared about the Second Amendment, and you had politicians that vote to confiscate people's guns, and the NRA turned around and raised money for the people who voted to confiscate guns, you know what? No one would ever care what they said again.
So you're making the case that AIPAC is not as powerful as people say it is, and I completely agree with you. I've watched that, and I'm not making the case that AIPAC is all powerful and they're running everything and putting fluoride in the water. I'm not making the case at all, because that's not true.
Putting fluoride in the water.
I'm only trying to get to the question of what AIPAC is, and I don't think you're being straightforward about it. AIPAC is lobbying on behalf of the interests of a foreign country, and they're not registered. And you're saying, no, that's not true. You're saying that they don't coordinate with the Israeli government.
Of course, I coordinate. Do they talk with them? I don't know what they do.
But why don't you care? Isn't it meaningful if a foreign government...
Hey, I talk with Israel all the time. I talk with foreign countries all the time.
But the law is, and a lot of people have been prosecuted under this law, that if you are lobbying on behalf of a foreign government, you must register. Senator. That's it. It's really simple. And I don't know why, if I'm working from Malaysia or Qatar or Belgium, and I'm working on behalf of this government's interests through a group of Americans who are representing the friendship between those two nations, I have to register under the Foreign Agent Registration Act, and if I don't, I can go to jail. And people have gone to jail, including people I know. So I don't understand why we don't just be honest and say they're lobbying on behalf of a foreign government, they're coordinating with the government. You know that that's true.
That is not only not true, that is false.
They're not coordinating with the Israeli government?
Do you know how AIPAC raises money? What? For elected officials, like what they do, like what the actual mechanics is?
I mean, they go to people who are sympathetic to Israel and raise money and then send it to candidates who agree with them.
So what they'll do is, in my last election, AIPAC endorsed me. And they'll host a fundraiser. And they'll host a fundraiser in Dallas or Houston or Atlanta or New York or LA. And they'll do a fundraiser and they'll get someone who'll host it. And it's usually a business owner, lawyer, doctor, someone who hosts it. And you'll get typically at an AIPAC fundraiser 30, 40, 50, maybe 100 people who live in that city.
Right.
Who care about a strong U.S.-Israel relationship. Yeah. And if they have 50 people, each of them writes a $1,000 check and you raise $50,000.
Yeah, I've been to an AIPAC fundraiser. I know what it looks like.
But that is not, and by the way, there's no representative of the Israeli government there. You have when you're in Dallas, you're meeting with...
This is such a false and silly conversation. I know all this. The question is are AIPAC's goals shaped by the goals of the Israeli government to any extent?
Okay, that's
a really
different
simple
from
question.
lobbying on behalf of.
It's a simple question. Are AIPAC's goals shaped by the goals of the Israeli government? And I'm just going to ask you that question straightforwardly. And if you say no, I think we both know that's not true.
Okay, are they shaped by? Is that?
Are they coordinating with the Israeli government?
Are they talking with them? Yes.
The Israeli
Israel
government?
directing them? What are you want to talk about? FARA, the law on lobbying on behalf of someone.
Yeah.
It is I hire you and you lobby on.
So, I think this is great. I loved it. I want to unpause it. Okay, I really do. I really do. This is fucking awesome. But I do want to mention that what Tucker is saying here, while he is cooking him, it doesn't make any fucking sense. It doesn't make any fucking sense at all. Like, think about what he's saying. He's saying that this institution, AIPAC, he used the word coordinate, okay? Coordinates with Israel. Okay, so like what? What are they coordinating? Which politician they're gonna give a fuck ton of money to defend Israel? Like, what I'm saying is, it doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't matter even a little bit that people that run AIPAC are communicating with the Israeli government or bigwigs in Israel. Okay, whatever. Who gives a fuck? Who cares? Why the fuck does that matter? The lobbyists aren't in the government, okay? It's like, even if people in our government are communicating with Israel, which they are, of course they are, that's our government doing that, okay? They're like, what I'm saying is, there should be no problems here. There should be no problems here. Like, why do lobbyists communicating with a foreign government that is our ally, that is our historic ally, our longest standing ally, probably one of them, not our longest standing ally, but one of our longest standing allies, why does that shit matter? It doesn't. Okay, what I'm saying is that Tucker is crafting what I believe to be an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. Okay, AIPAC is like nefarious, and they're coordinating with the Jewish ethno-state, which of course represents all Jews, Jewish people as a collective. And they are like doing something nefarious to get our government involved with Iran, perhaps, or something else. That's the narrative he's going with here. That's the overarching vibe. Okay. The reason that that's fucking stupid is that, like, it just is. Like, it doesn't fucking matter if they're talking to the Israeli government. What the fuck are they gonna do? What are they gonna talk about? Once again, the AIPAC, all they do is they give money to politicians. That's basically all they do. They do that, and they get together and they talk about Israel and how awesome it is, how awesome Israel is, and how it has a right to defend herself. That's it. Now, I'm not saying that that's not bad. Of course that's fucking bad. Of course that's bad, and of course a slimy little weasel like Ted Cruz is gonna, go super hard on defending Israel, on the defending Israel topic. Okay, of course he is. He's never gonna back down from this. AIPAC is probably his largest donor. But just, like, if you're watching this, if you're watching it with me, or you watch it by yourself, don't get it twisted. Okay, Tucker Carlson, he may be fighting a good fight here, or whatever. But, he is coming from an anti-Semitic place. He is. Okay, he's approaching this like, oh yeah, it's those sneaky Jews, like, stealing our politicians. Like brainwashing our fucking politicians. No, man. They're just paying them to defend Israel. That's what they're doing. Okay, they are paying politicians so that, number one, they say over and over again, Israel has a right to defend itself, and two, so that they'll give Israel more money. Okay, so that they'll try to pass bills to give them more money. So that they'll pass bills to give them more weapons, give them more aid. Okay, that's the point. That's the point. Let's keep going.
Behalf of me, I direct you. Does Israel direct AIPAC? No, they are not lobbying on behalf of them. Do they care about them? Yes, but
they are. Do you think that it's just interesting because what you're now describing in a very defensive way, I will say, is foreign influence over our politics.
No,
and you began, and it's so transparently obvious to everybody. I don't know why you would be embarrassed of it. You've said that you are sincerely for Israel. I believe you. I don't think you have some weird agenda. You seem to be sincere.
By the way, Tucker, it's a very weird thing. The obsession with Israel, when we're talking about foreign countries,
hardly an obsession.
You're not talking about Chinese, you're not talking about Japanese, you're not talking about the Brits, you're not talking about the French. The question, what about the Jews? What about the Jews?
Oh, I'm an anti-Semite now. Senator,
you're asking the question, Tucker. You're asking, why are the Jews controlling our foreign policy?
Senator,
that's what you did.
So, like I said, I think Tucker is anti-Semitic. I believe that. I do. However, that's not what he fucking said. That's not even close to what he said. He said Israel as a nation is like meddling in our government. They're like you know, they're like brainwashing our politicians. Whatever. They're paying our politicians off. Okay, Israel is doing that. I disagree with that. But that statement in and of itself, and I suspect it has anti-Semitic undertones. I did say that earlier, okay? But it just wasn't overtly anti-Semitic, which is why it's crazy for Ted Cruz to come out and be like, yeah, you just hate Jews. You just think that the Jews are like, you believe in Jewish conspiracies. Like, yeah, he does, but like, you failed to prove it. Tucker didn't say anything just now that like truly overtly revealed his true anti-Semitic beliefs. Okay, he didn't.
Let's hardly saying that, and I have.
That is exactly what you just said.
Well, actually, I can speak for myself and tell you what I am saying.
That is exactly what you just said.
With Israel, when we're talking about foreign countries,
hardly an obsession.
You're not talking about Chinese. You're not talking about Japanese. You're not talking about the Brits. You're not talking about the French. The question: what about the Jews? What about the Jews?
Oh, I'm an anti-Semite now. Senator,
you're asking the question, Tucker. You're asking why are the Jews controlling our foreign policy?
Senator,
that's what you just asked.
Hardly saying that, and I have.
That is exactly what you just said.
Well, actually, I can speak for myself and tell you what I am saying.
Good.
And I also want to point out here that Ted Cruz's conflation of Israel and Jewish people in general is anti-Semitic. By calling Tucker an anti-Semite here, he himself is being anti-Semitic.
On behalf not simply of myself, but of my many Jewish friends.
Israel is not Jews. And Jews are not Israel. It is not anywhere close to the same thing. They are completely separate. Judaism and Israel, the Israeli project, they are completely separate. And in fact, there is no argument to combine the two. There is no valid argument. There is none. Okay, yes, Israel is a Jewish ethno-state. Okay, that doesn't mean it represents Judaism or Jewish people or any of that shit, okay? It has nothing to do with the religion. Anyway.
Who would have the same questions, which is to what extent, and it's interesting you're trying to derail my questions by calling me an anti-Semite, which you are.
I did not.
Of course you are. And rather than be honorable enough to say it right to my face, you are in a sleazy, feline way implying it, or just asking questions about the Jews. I'm not asking questions about the Jews. There's nothing to do with Jews or Judaism. It has to do with foreign government.
Isn't Israel controlling our foreign policy? That's not about the Jews.
You said, I'm asking you.
And by the way, you're the one that just called me, I think, a sleazy feline. So let's be clear.
It's sleazy to imply that I'm an anti-Semite, which you just did.
No, I just said, why is that the only question you're asking? You answer. Give me another reason. If you're not an anti-Semite, give me another reason why the obsession is Israel.
I am in no sense obsessed with Israel. We are on the brink of war with Iran. And so these are valid questions.
But you're not asking about Iran.
If I can finish, you asked me why I'm obsessed with Israel. 3 minutes after telling me that when you first ran for Congress, you elucidated one of your main goals, which is to defend Israel.
Yes.
And I'm the one who's obsessed with Israel. I don't see a lawmaker's job as defending the interests of a foreign government, period. Okay. Any government, including the ones that my ancestors come from. So that's my position. That does not make me an anti-Semite. And shame on you for suggesting otherwise, and I mean that. And that's low, and you know it's low. So why don't you just answer my questions in a straightforward, rational way? You certainly have the IQ to do it.
So, shame on you is cute, by the way, Tucker.
It is. It's not cute. I'm offended. I'm obsessed with the Jews. You just told me
you just called me a sleazy feline.
It is sleazy to imply that I'm an anti-Semite for asking questions about how my government is run.
You want to count how many questions you asked about? What about the Jews? What about Israel? What about AIPAC?
I never asked about the Jews. I have this has nothing to do with the Jews, whatever that means. This has to do with a foreign government. And once again, shame on you for conflating the two. They have nothing to do with each other. I'm talking about the influence of
Israel have nothing to do with each other.
Yo, I have never seen Tucker this woke before. This is crazy. He is fucking woked up, bro. He is woke as fuck right now. That is insanity. He just said, how dare you conflate the two? How dare you? That's awesome, bro. That is a genuine Tucker W. That is a genuine Tucker Carlson W. And in the year 2025, never did I think I would be saying that. Okay, that is
all
a
Jews
genuine Tucker Carlson W.
Which I am not.
But don't worry, I'm sure he will fuck it up in like 10 seconds.
Or would I ever be undertaken? Now, I'm not attacking anybody.
By the way, that's who Iran wants to kill, is all the Jews and all the Americans.
And I'm totally opposed to that, okay? But now, because
except you don't want to do anything
decisions need to be made.
We can talk about those decisions.
And I plan to.
Good.
But except you don't want to go to Iran. Except you don't want us to fight a war with Iran.
I just want to get a sense of whether you think, having described yourself as an America First person whose only criterion for judgment of foreign policy is America's national interest, to what extent you're influenced by a foreign government, which gives you a lot of money through its lobby, and you're claiming this has nothing to do with foreign government. They're not coordinating. Yes, they're spying on us, but it doesn't bother you. And I'm just wondering, like, what is this? This is one of the weirdest conversations I've ever had.
I'll tell you what, and I'll answer any question you want, but let's try to...
Are you going to call me an anti-Semite again, or no?
Let's try to ratchet down the temperature a little.
You're the one who went to motive. I'm asking honest questions.
I'm
just asking questions. Yes, that's it. That is what I'm doing.
Let's try to ratchet down the temperature a little bit.
Okay.
Picture the house of your dreams. Maybe it's got an outdoor pool, a huge front porch, an inviting fireplace for a cold winter. American Flag Day. Phone bill in real. Go to puretalk.com/Tucker to support veterans and to switch to America's company. Wireless from Pure Talk.
And did you ever see an Eddie Murphy movie called The Distinguished Gentleman?
No.
It's a great movie. It's actually a fun comedy about politics. And Eddie Murphy in the movie is a con man who gets elected to Congress. And he's literally a con man who... The congressman dies, he has the same name, and so he runs and they get elected. And there's a scene in the movie where Eddie Murphy is a freshman member of Congress, and he's sitting down with a sleazy lobbyist. And he's asking the lobbyist, all right, what should my positions be on, I think they're talking about power plants and electrical transmission lines. And the lobbyist's like, well, what do you believe? And Eddie Murphy's comment said, I don't care, whatever gets me the most money. I'll do whatever gets me the most money. And the lobbyist says, no, pick a side. Doesn't matter what you pick. If you pick one side, we'll go shake down everyone who supports that side and they'll give you money. If you pick the other side, that's fine. We'll just go to the other side and shake down that. That's a little bit the way it works. And you often get leftists in the media who say, for example, if you support the Second Amendment, as you do and I do, well, you're just bought and paid for by the NRA. And that actually is backwards. I believe in the Second Amendment because I believe in the Constitution. Now,
who says that? Who says if you believe in the Second Amendment, you... Hey, what's up? Oh, yeah, Alright, chat. Apparently, I am going to a bar. Oops. I didn't want to, but that's what I'm doing now. So, I gotta go get dressed, but I will be back in a couple of hours. I'm gonna leave this stream up, and I will finish reacting to this when I get back. And we are gonna react to it. Because this shit is funny as fuck. I'm back. I'm back and, well, I'm a little drunk. But only a little bit. So I think I can still commentate over this. Da 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 ba da 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 da. fuck? All right, we're continuing on our
Now,
journey.
am I proud that the NRA supports me?
interview.
Sure, because
Let's
people
go.
who care about the Second Amendment want to support leaders who fight for it. But it gets it backward. Look, AIPAC, when I ran for the Senate, AIPAC didn't support me. I supported Israel before they supported me. I'm happy to have their support because they share my objective.
No, but you're missing it. I'm not suggesting that you're bought and paid for. I'm not saying that. I want to go back and take sincere.
I want to go back and take the transcript because you just said a minute ago.
I would suggest that. Just because you advocated for these things before they supported you doesn't mean that you aren't bought and paid for by them. You could have just been doing that to attain their support. I'm not even saying that that's what happened, but it's just like there's so many ways to attack this argument. It's not a good one.
Are you, I'm slightly paraphrasing, but are you lobbying for a foreign government because they pay you a lot of money? That's basically what you said. So you are suggesting that.
Let me just be clear about what I think. Your views seem totally sincere.
Yes.
You take money from people.
But are you lobbying for a foreign government because they pay you a lot of money? That's
because are you lobbying for a foreign government because they pay you a lot of money? Yes, bro. Yeah, of course that's what people are saying. What?
Basically what you said. So you are suggesting that.
Let me just be clear about what I think.
All right.
Your views seem totally sincere.
Yes.
You take money from people who agree with you.
Yeah.
I believe that. I
take money from people who disagree with me.
I'm only trying to get to the question of to what extent is the U.S. government influenced by other governments? And it's a lot.
Of course.
It's hardly just Israel. It's hardly just Israel. I don't think Israel's the main one. There are lots of governments. China is a massive influence on this city.
And it's a huge problem.
As you know, I couldn't agree more. And there are lots of other. The UK, which is a truly sinister place, in my opinion, as a ethnic Brit, I can say. I think that's my view. Maybe you disagree.
I think they're on the wrong path. I love the Brits, but their government
without even getting into that. I'm just saying I don't think Israel's the only one. But it's the only one where you're instantly called an anti-Semite for asking questions. And it's also the only government that no one will ever criticize. And
people criticize Israel every minute of every day. Like, the only government that people will not criticize, Rashida Tlaib just tweeted out calling Benjamin Netanyahu a war criminal.
Rashida Tlaib? No.
You said no one will criticize.
No, I'm talking about Republicans that I would vote for, including you. I'm saying, whatever. I don't even like talking about Israel. What I care about, I never do, because it's not worth being called anti-Semites from AIPAC recipients. But now we are on the verge of joining a war, and I just want to be clear about why we're doing this.
All right, so
that sore on his lip is really getting to me. On the left side of his lip, it's right here. I'm sorry, I had to point that out.
And let's get into Iran momentarily. But
it was getting to me before.
You suggested it was a strange thing that I said a minute ago, that when I came into the Senate, I resolved that I was going to be the leading defender of Israel. And what you didn't ask is why, so let me tell you why.
No, you said I was obsessed with Israel, and you had just told me that, like, your driving motive to get to the Senate was to defend Israel. I'm like, I don't think I'm the one who's obsessed with Israel.
Okay, so Tucker, words matter.
Uh-huh.
And you know that. I said I resolved to be the leading defender of Israel, and you said your driving motive, the reason you're in the Senate.
You want to be the leading defender of Israel. I would think if I ran for Senate, I'd be like, there are people dying of drug abuse on the street.
My driving motive is to fight for Texas and America, and to fight for jobs, and to fight for the Constitution. And you played a very, very careful word game of a lie to you.
You're the one who said it, not me.
So you still haven't asked why, but I'm going to tell you why.
Okay.
And the reason is twofold. Number one, as a Christian, growing up in Sunday school, I was taught from the Bible, those who bless Israel will be blessed, and those who curse Israel will be cursed. And from my perspective, I want to be on the blessing side of things.
Of those who bless the government of Israel?
Those who bless Israel is what it says. It doesn't say the government of it, it says the nation of Israel.
I believe that he's telling the truth here. That is what he, like, solidified in his mind. However, of course, I completely disagree. As a Christian, I think to support Israel is to go against what like the Bible is trying to tell us. What is the Bible constantly preaching? Okay, peace to your neighbor. Turn the other cheek if they harm you. That's what Christianity is about. And that's exactly the opposite of how most Christians interpret it. How can you say that you are a Christian that accurately that accurately upholds the word of Jesus Christ and still support American imperialism and war in the Middle East. It's crazy. It's crazy to me how Christians can justify this shit, but they do.
So that's in the Bible. As a Christian, I believe that.
Where is that?
I can find it to you. I don't have the scripture off the tip of my... You pull out the phone and use the...
It's in Genesis, but... So you're quoting a Bible phrase. You don't have context for it. You don't know where in the Bible it is, but that's like your theology? I'm confused. What does that even mean?
Tucker.
I'm a Christian. I want to know what you're talking about. Okay.
Where does my support for Israel come from? Number one, because biblically we're commanded to support Israel. But number two...
Hold on. Hold on. You're a senator, and now you're throwing out theology, and I am a Christian, and I am allowed to weigh in on this. We are commanded as Christians to support the government of Israel?
We are commanded to support Israel. And what
does that mean, Israel?
We're told those who bless it.
He's saying that as Christians, we are commanded to support the Zionist project, which is so insane. Such an insane thing to say. Okay? We, as Christians, don't have to support Zionists. Jesus would obviously not want us to do that. Zionism is an insane bastardization of Judaism. Okay, y'all already know that I think this. But anyway, where the fuck in the Bible does it say thou shalt support Israel? Where the fuck does it say that,
Israel will be blessed.
But hold on, define Israel. This is important. Are you kidding? This is a majority Christian country.
Define Israel? Do you not know what Israel is? That would be the country you've asked 49 questions about.
So that's what that's what God is talking about.
The nation of Israel, yes.
So is that the current borders, the current leadership? He's talking about the political entity called Israel?
He's talking about the nation of Israel. Yeah, nations exist, and he's discussing a nation. A nation was the people of Israel.
Is the nation God's referring to in Genesis, is that the same as the country run by Benjamin Netanyahu right now?
Yes.
It is. Okay.
And by the way, it's not run by Benjamin Netanyahu as a dictator. It's a Democratic country that elected.
He's the prime minister,
right?
What?
But just like America is the country run by Donald Trump. No, actually, the American people elected Donald Trump. The same principle
is silly. I'm talking about the political entity of modern Israel.
Yes, and that is
you believe
Israel.
That's what God was talking about in Genesis.
I do, but
that country's existed since when?
For thousands of years. Now, there was a time when it didn't exist, and then was recreated just over 70 years.
But I'm saying, I think most people understand that line in Genesis to refer to the Jewish people, God's chosen people.
That's not what it says.
Okay, Israel, but you don't even know where in the Bible it is. So I don't know if we can...
I don't remember the scriptural citation. But, okay,
it's like Genesis 16 or something like that. But yes, it's in the earlier part of the book. But the point is...
All right, Tucker, you keep interrupting me before I finish my sentence.
It's important to know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're... So you're saying as a Christian, if I believe in Jesus, I have to support the modern state of Israel?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm explaining for me what my motivation is.
But okay, so I'm just trying to understand. You said... God tells you to support the modern state of Israel in the Bible, in some place in the Bible that you heard about, but you don't know where it is. That's your theology?
You're going back, am I a sleazy feline again? I mean,
if you accuse me of anti-Semitism again, I will say that, but I don't think you will.
Try to be a little less condescending. I'm trying to have a conversation.
Condescending. You're throwing this stuff out, and it's my job to figure out what you're talking about, and I don't understand.
But you're not letting me.
Okay. I'm sorry. I want to be polite.
That is, for me, a personal motivation. But I also, what I was about to say, I don't believe my personal faith, not everyone who I represent is a Christian. It's not an argument for me to give that we should do this because of my faith. And so as an elected official, I don't give that as the reason we should support Israel. That is a personal motivation for me, but I don't think it is the reason.
As Christians, we should oppose the state of Israel because they are genociding the indigenous population. As a Christian, okay, I'm saying it, okay, as a Christian, I don't understand how you can support this shit. I don't get it. Like, I'm not saying that you should oppose it because you are a Christian. I'm saying that you should just oppose it as a human being in general, whether you are a disciple of Abraham or not. Okay, whether you are Muslim, Christian, Jewish, fucking Hindu. Okay, whatever, anything, you should oppose the state of Israel. They are a right-wing genocidal apartheid state. As a nation, we should oppose them, but we don't. We support them. In fact, we created them. We created the nation state. Okay? I don't want harm to fall upon Israelis. I don't want that. As I've said in the past, I think that what's fair and what's just in an ideal world, we would grant passage to Israelis to America. Okay? I mean, like, what I mean by that is, if we were to say, we're not going to support Israel anymore, we're not going to give them money or arms, which would be the correct thing to do, obviously there would be a lot of Israelis that feel unsafe in their home. Okay, whether it was stolen or not, in their home, they would feel unsafe. And as Americans, we are obligated to grant them passage here. This is something that I've been saying for many years, okay, since I was a teenager. And back then, I had a more, Republican worldview, a more nihilistic worldview as well. And even back then, I said, it's only fair. If the Israeli regime were to dissolve, our country would be culpable. And we should take them in. It's only fair, in my opinion. Okay, I know I don't want a bunch of crazy motherfuckers like Israelis living here. Okay, and they are insane. Okay, they're even more insane than our American population. But it's only fair. We started this. We did this. We sent people to Israel to occupy it. We should take them back. And anybody that doesn't want to live there should have a place to go. In the event that the regime dissolves, which is unlikely, okay? I'm not saying that any of this is actually going to happen. I'm just saying that in an ideal scenario, that is what we should do as Americans. Stop sending money to Israel, and when the regime inevitably topples, when it, fucking implodes in on itself because they aren't getting weapons from us, we should allow Israelis to come here. That's what I advocate for. That's what I say. I don't want anybody to be harmed. Okay, I understand that, like, a post IDF, a post-Netanyahu Israeli state would be, maybe not literally dangerous for Israelis. It would be very uncomfortable for them. So let them come here. Let them come here. Anyway, let's keep listening.
The reason that I am the leading defender of Israel is because Israel is our strongest ally in the Middle East, an incredibly troubled part of the world, and supporting Israel benefits America. And the clearest illustration of that is what is happening right now. Let me just make this point, and then,
and then I'll just ask what you mean. That's it. Okay. Yeah.
Look, Iran, I think the most acute national security threat facing America right now is the threat of a nuclear Iran. I think China is the biggest long-term threat, but acute and near-term is a nuclear Iran.
Okay.
And I think Israel is doing a massive favor to America right now by trying to take out Iran's nuclear capacity. And the reason I view Iran differently, we talked before about Iraq. I opposed the Iraq war. We talked about Syria. I opposed military intervention in Syria. The reason for that is those did not pose a threat to the United States. I think Iran is markedly different. Number one, the Ayatollah is a religious zealot. He is a lunatic, but a particularly dangerous kind of lunatic because he's driven by religious fervor. When he says death to America and death to Israel, I believe him. And I think Iran is trying to get a nuclear weapon because there is a very real possibility they would use.
No shit, they hate us. No shit. I don't blame them. I don't blame them for hating us. Our country has, we have so many military bases in so many countries. And look, I know what people are going to say about me, about how I love Hassan. I love Hassan so much, okay? But it's like Hassan said. And I'm a fucking quote him here. 200 military bases. 200. That is 200 invasions waiting to happen. Our country is we have the strongest military on the fucking planet. Yes, it is very threatening to other countries, especially Iran. And they don't even have any nuclear weapons. They don't even fucking have any. You want to know how I know they don't? It's the same reason that Iraq didn't have any nuclear weapons. Because if they had them, they'd be threatening us. And we would fucking deserve it. Okay, but they aren't. They don't have nuclear weapons. It is insanity to say that they do. It is unsubstantiated.
Use a nuclear weapon. So you want to ask, how does supporting Israel benefit us? Right now, this tiny little country, the size of the state of New Jersey, is fighting our enemies for us and taking out their top military leadership and trying to take out their nuclear capacity. That makes America much safer.
So the president has said repeatedly Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon, yes, and he will do whatever it takes to stop Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. He said that like 100 times. He clearly means it. I think he will use force to effect that if he feels he has to. I think he's been really clear about that. I don't know, but it seems that way. Do you think that's correct?
Whether he would use force to stop a nuclear weapon, I think he has put that option on the table.
He certainly suggests. I mean, I have literally no idea what's going to happen, but just reading his statements, he's made that really clear.
So what he has been very clear about, and I spoke with the president on Sunday, is he has been very clear to Iran that if they attack U.S. servicemen and women, there will be real consequences and I think very serious military.
By the way, this is a sidebar, but I just can't resist. The Prime Minister of Israel said that Iran tried to assassinate Donald Trump twice.
And that statement will uphold even when we intervene in the conflict, which is unfair. That is totally unfair. If we send our soldiers, our military, into Iran, which at this point, I don't know if it's highly likely, but it is certainly on the table. Okay, yeah, they're gonna kill our service members, okay? It's terrible. But, what the fuck do you think is gonna happen? What do you think is gonna happen if we try to invade, if we try to, take out their nuclear capabilities? Of course. And anyway, that's why it's bullshit. It's bullshit to make a statement like that when you know that we're probably going to get involved in this. I don't know. I'm just going to keep
I read your newsletter this morning and
But do you believe that's true?
I think it was sort of a word game. What is true is Iran is trying to assassinate Donald J. Trump, and they have hired hitmen. Now, you pointed out...
No, he said that they have tried twice to kill him, and...
That is an insane conspiracy. It's just unsubstantiated. I'm not even saying that... Excuse me. I'm not even saying that that's not the case. Okay? I'm just saying that there's no proof. There's no fucking proof that Iran is trying to assassinate Donald Trump. And if they were, that would be unacceptable. But it is no more unacceptable than us, casually toppling the regime, as they put it. Oh yeah, we're just gonna topple this regime. We're gonna topple that regime. Do you understand that is that is as much of a threat as toppling our government? What is this double standard? So we can threaten toppling their government, but they can't, they're not even talking about toppling our government, okay? And in fact, they're just saying death to America. But we are literally transparently laying out a plan to topple their government. Oh, okay. They try to assassinate our president. That's terrible. That is unacceptable. Sure. Is it acceptable when we try to topple their entire government? No, it's not. Okay, Iran is a sovereign nation. an incredibly peaceful nation, given the circumstances that they find themselves in. And we're talking about fucking toppling them. It's insanity. It's insanity. But my honest opinion here, realistically, we should not topple Iran. This is the best we're gonna get. Okay, Iran is a great nation. Again, given the circumstances, given the context of where they are and what's happening. If we were to replace the regime with a different one, it is guaranteed to be more violent. Guaranteed.
I don't know that, I don't have any evidence that's true, but I sort of wonder if that is true. Why aren't we at war with them already?
Okay. And I read your newsletter this morning, and I thought it was playing word games to draw a political point.
How's that a word game? It's my president. And
can I tell you?
Yeah, please.
Okay. You rightly pointed out there's no evidence that this clown in Butler, Pennsylvania, who shot the president was working for the Iranians. I don't think he was. There's no evidence of that. Although I would like to know more about who he was and what's going on.
But then why do you keep saying that Iran is trying to kill the president? Then why do you keep saying that? Like, he's right. There is no link between Iran and any of the assassination attempts, of which to my knowledge, there have been two. There have been two. There was one during the campaign trail in, what was it, North Carolina? And then there was another more recently. I'm pretty sure it was before he was sworn in, but yeah, he was like on a golf course in Florida. Some guy shot at him. I don't know. I've been drinking tonight, this evening. Okay, between the edit and now, I've been drinking. I still think I can articulate where I want our country to go, which direction I want us to go in, and I just want us to, like, stop fucking with other countries in general, especially ones in the Middle East. Israel is there, and it's not going anywhere, and we can't... They're not going anywhere, okay? We're not, like it's not going to go away, okay? So, fine. Fine. I say stop supporting them, stop sending them money, stop sending them guns. That's what a majority of Americans that are, like, anti-Israel are saying. Okay, they don't... Like, think about that. Israel is our historic ally, and Americans don't want to topple Israel. We don't want to take them out. We just want to let them get by on their own, which they probably won't be able to do if they keep up this hostility with other nations. Like, they're going to have to become more friendly with the nations that are surrounding them, or they're going to fucking start World War III. And that is what Americans are concerned with. Okay, that is my message.
I don't find it plausible that he was working for the Iranians. So, was that caused by the Iranians?
Wow.
No. But what is true, and what your newsletter didn't acknowledge, is it true or false that Iran is currently trying to murder Donald J. Trump and has paid hitmen to do so?
Well, that's the question, and I don't know. The Butler, Pennsylvania thing, let's just put that aside. I don't know.
Yeah, it was Pennsylvania, not North Carolina. My bad. Do you think that kid was paid by Iran to shoot at him? Is that what you think? Think about how ridiculous that sounds. This was like a 19 or like 20-year-old kid from Pennsylvania. Now, like, there's been a pretty substantial amount of coverage over what his political leanings are or were before he was killed. But I just don't think he was an Iranian sleeper cell. What the fuck are we talking about,
So
man?
Netanyahu misspoke when he said those two assassinations were because of Iran. But what he was saying that is right is they're actively trying to murder Donald J. Trump.
Okay, so you're aware of a plot to kill Trump?
Yes, that Iran is paying for. And by the way,
when?
It has been over the.
Okay. So I have an opinion about this as well, which they're talking about, which is, there are people that want to assassinate Donald Trump. There are lots of people, and I'm not saying it's okay. It is never okay to murder in general, okay? But even an evil person like Donald Trump shouldn't be assassinated. That's crazy. It would only, honestly, I don't know. If Donald Trump were to die of a heart attack, I would be celebrating. I might even celebrate if he were assassinated. Because he's an evil person. He's a terrible person. However, hey, Donut, yo, it is late, man. What? Me too. Me too, yeah. Yeah, well, anyway, controversial opinion here, man, but murder is wrong. Okay, I still don't think he should be assassinated. I think it's fucked up to assassinate someone. But anyway, my point here is that, people want to assassinate Trump. Of course they do. He's doing a bunch of fucked up shit. Of course they want to assassinate him. It's not just Iranians. It's not just fucking Iranians. And anyway, Iran is not interested in assassinating Donald Trump. That is a crazy thing to say. Okay, it's just not. Would it be beneficial for them if he were assassinated? Maybe. I don't really think that it would be much different. And I think that the Iranian government is aware of that. Like, it doesn't matter if Donald Trump is the president or if Kamala Harris is the fucking president. Or J.D. Vance. Okay, J.D. Vance would be the successor. It doesn't fucking matter. Okay, the shit would still be the same. We would still be in this situation. And it always would have happened. Because this was Israel's plan from the beginning. Just like in the 90s, just like with Iraq.
Last, I'd say, 18 months to 2 years.
In the United States?
In the United States, yes. And let me point out.
Has anyone been arrested?
For the Trump attempted assassination, no. But they are also actively paying Iranian hitmen to murder Mike Pompeo when he was President Trump's first.
He's lying. He's just lying about that. Yes, a person has been... there have been 2 assassination attempts that we know of. 2. And that's it. And if he's privy to some other assassination attempt that we don't know about, fine. Okay, but we don't know about it. Anyway, there have been arrests. Okay, the kid that tried to shoot at him in Pennsylvania was killed. So they couldn't arrest him. But I know for a fact that the guy in Florida was arrested. And yeah, he's not an Iranian sleeper cell.
Secretary of State, the first term, rather. John Bolton, when John Bolton was National Security Advisor to President Trump, and a guy named Brian Hook, who was Assistant Secretary of State.
Right.
During the Biden administration.
Wait, but hold on. Can we go back to Donald Trump because he's the president? No, it's a big deal. What do you mean? When no one has been arrested for these assassination attempts on Trump.
Why do we keep talking about, old shit? Okay, he's the president right now. Let's talk about him.
And how do we know that?
All right, let me break it down. People have been arrested. So the reason I brought up Pompeo, Bolton, and Hook, who are under active assassination attempts because of their service in the first Trump administration, under the Biden...
Well, they say that. I've never seen any evidence of it.
Can I give you the evidence?
Well, let's just stick with Trump.
No, because these are interrelated. So let me make a bloody point. Under the Biden administration, the State Department was spending $2 million...
No, bro. Oh, you said a bloody point? Bro, that is so Brit-coded. That is so fucking British-coded. Yeah, Americans don't like that, man. Like, that's why I say I don't understand why he decided to do this interview, man. I don't get it. Why did he do this? It's just a bad look for, like, Ted Cruz. I don't know. He doesn't really... at this point, actually, I just came to this realization. Holy shit. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. He got elected after the hentai shit? Yeah, there's nothing that can kill this man's career. I guess if I were him, I would be like, yeah, I'll just say whatever the fuck I want to.
$1 a month providing security
I'll be
for
right back.
Pompeo, Bolton, and Hook. And they did arrest Iranian hitmen at John Bolton's apartment complex who rented, I think, the apartment next to him and were actively trying to assassinate him. And they went and arrested them. So, yes, they caught Iranian hitmen. Now, it so happens Iran's not very good at it. And so they are actively trying. And in fact,
but what about Trump? He's the president. If there's a plot to kill Trump by the Iranians,
so you dispute that the Iranians are trying to kill Trump?
Of course. I mean, that's the most important question. The prime minister of Israel just said there have been 2 assassination attempts against Donald Trump by the Iranians. And I think it's a very fair question, maybe you disagree, to ask, what are you talking about?
Okay, and I agree with you that he misspoke.
So there weren't those 2 attempts?
There were 2 attempts, but the clown in Butler, Pennsylvania, and the other guy on the golf course were not connected to the Iranians. That's the part that he misspoke. But by the way, when you speak all the time, occasionally, what he said that was accurate is that Iran is actively trying to murder Donald J. Trump and has paid hitmen.
Okay, but that's fine.
And he was conflating it with the 2 attempts.
I understand. But I just want to pull that thread because it's so important. I voted for Donald Trump. I campaigned for Donald Trump. Yeah. He's our president. And we're on the cusp of a war. So if there's evidence that Iran paid hitmen to kill Donald Trump and is currently doing that, where's that? Like, what are you even talking? I've never heard that before.
Okay.
Where's the evidence? Who are these people? Why haven't they been arrested? Why are we not at war with Iran?
That's a great question to ask.
How do you know that that's true?
We know that it's true because we have been told that by the military and our intelligence community for the last 2 years.
We meaning who?
Congress has and the public. I mean, we had multiple testimonies. I can send you testimony.
Do we know the names of the people or where this happened or what they tried to do to kill Trump?
We do not. We have not apprehended an Iranian hitman trying to kill him. We know that Iran is trying to do so.
In the United States?
Yes. And by the way, like Iran...
This just seems like a huge headline and you're acting like everyone knows this. Oh, I didn't know that.
Iran put out a whole...
Yeah, they misspoke. He said that they're talking. First of all, I have it on 1.25 times speed, and also they're like hitting points kind of quickly here. Ted Cruz's anyway. But yeah, they said that the 2 assassination attempts that the public knows about were like Iranian sponsored Iranian sponsored hits. And it was a kid from Pennsylvania and a man from Florida. Okay, an older man from Florida. Or no, the kid from Pennsylvania, not really a kid, okay? He was like 19 or 20 or whatever. Okay, whatever. Anyway, like they're saying that Iran wants to kill Trump. Iran wants to kill Trump. And Tucker Carlson is asking, where's the evidence? And they're like, Iran wants to kill Trump. Like, okay, bro. All right. What? Like, they have presented nothing. First of all, even if the Israeli intelligence community came out and said, like, yeah, like Iran wants to assassinate Trump and like we have evidence for it, I would question the validity of it. Because it's coming from an intelligence community, Mossad, that I don't trust. I don't trust because they've lied before. Because they've lied a lot of times that we know of. But they're not even doing that. They're just trying to say that these last 2 assassination attempts were Iran actually doing it. Yes, it is late, but I oddly woke up. Glad I did, because my phone died. Sometimes I feel like I have a supernatural... And then it's cut off. Man, charge your phone. Charge your phone and then go to sleep, man. I know you got work. It's fucking Wednesday. Shit, I got work tomorrow. Or I need to, anyway. I probably won't start the stream tomorrow until very late because of that. Yes, I want him assassinated, and I don't feel bad. Thursday, yeah. Look, man, I get that. I'm not just saying this because I'm live and the FBI is watching. Okay, I know they're fucking watching me. I know they are. I know they have been for a while now, probably. But no, I don't want Donald Trump to be assassinated. I don't support that. I don't think it's okay. Murder is inexcusable in almost all cases. The only like adequate justification for murder is self-defense. And Republicans age like milk. He looks awful. Oh yeah, look at him. Yo, I paused it on a bad frame, okay, but like still. That freeze frame. Gonna use that as a profile pic on Twitter? Go ahead. Go ahead, man. I sponsor that. Yeah, Ted Cruz is a disgusting person. A slimy little cretin. I wish that he would just disappear into a hole and never come out. But unfortunately, it seems he's here to stay, because if they didn't... If they... Like... I don't know. I don't know, man. I get it. I get voting for your party no matter what. I understand that. But a guy like Ted Cruz... Yeah, like you vote for him, still voted for him after that power outage? Yeah. Yeah, he doesn't give a fuck. You fucking kidding me? Yeah, no, he doesn't care. But anyway, I just... Like, Republicans, please, just take an L. Just take a fucking L. And get a new candidate. Like, you don't have to keep voting for these pieces of shit. Like, think about it. If Ted Cruz lost an election, he would be gone forever. He would never come back. But they won't even do that. They won't even lose one election. They just gotta vote for him. It's like, why? Like, if you just lost this one election, this one primary, you would get a new Republican candidate. And Ted Cruz is weird. He's weird, man. He talked about hentai with his kids and tweeted about it. It's weird. It's a weird look. Okay, and anyway, besides that, he's also just a disgusting person.
Video about murdering Trump.
We still got an hour left on this shit.
I've never heard evidence that there are hitmen in the United States. I mean, trying to kill Trump right now. We should have a nationwide dragnet on this, and we should attack Iran immediately if that's true.
Yeah. It's almost like our intelligence community isn't pursuing it because it is unsubstantiated. Because there is no evidence that it's happening.
If they're trying to assassinate our president?
They have been for 2 years.
Then why aren't we at war with them?
Well, we are trying to...
Why don't we just nuke Tehran if they're trying to murder our president? There's nothing that you could do that would be worse for the United States than murdering Trump.
Yeah, I mean, like, I kind of agree with that. Like, Trump is he holds the position in the highest office. So murdering him would be the most serious crime that you could commit in our country. Like, if that were happening, then yeah, we should investigate it, of course. And they aren't. There is no investigation because it's not fucking happening. Because Iran would never do that. They would never fucking do that in a million years. They would never fucking do that. And you want to know how I know that? Because if they did that, it would mean the end of their country as they know it. It would mean... It would be Iraq 2.0, okay? It would be 9/11 2, Electric Boogaloo. It would be, like, worse than anything we've ever seen in the Middle East if they did that. They don't want to fucking assassinate Trump. They just don't want to get bombed by Israel. That's it. That's what I think, anyway. I think that is their sole motive, and I'm not Iranian, so what do I know? But, like... I don't know. I'm thinking about it, and I'm trying to think from an Iranian's perspective. And, like, yeah, I think that they just don't want to get bombed by our country and by our country's allies. That doesn't mean they're trying to assassinate our president. He's also a self-hating Hispanic. He changed his name to please white people. I heard that. Yeah, I heard about that. I don't know if that's true. I cannot... I believe it, okay? I'm not saying I don't trust you, okay? I do, but, like, I've heard that. I don't know if it is, like, substantiated by facts, but it is true, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's Texas. That's a Texas moment. And Ted Cruz is just, like, I don't think he has loyalty for anybody, okay? He wouldn't even have loyalty for AIPAC if they weren't paying him. Of course he wouldn't. Okay, I don't think any of these fucking politicians would give a fuck about Israel if they weren't getting money from AIPAC. And that's what everybody else thinks, too. That's what everybody else thinks, but, anyway, I do think that if AIPAC were to like stop funding people as hard as they are, they wouldn't get anywhere with this shit. Like, they wouldn't get anywhere with the propaganda. It's all because of the money. Like, our politicians, they only give a fuck about the money. And that is exactly how our government was twisted into becoming. Because if the politicians only care about the money, then they only care about the people with money, which is the top 1%.
Weapons against the Ayatollah right now. I'm serious. If you really believe they're trying to murder...
The use of nuclear weapons...
Whatever
that's part
it
of the
takes.
problem of...
So what do you mean? You don't seem to take the allegation seriously. I do. If you believe they're trying to murder Trump, we need to stop what we're doing and punish them.
Can I ask something?
That's a good point, because Ted Cruz is over here like what Ted Cruz is spinning here. The narrative he's spinning here. I've already said this, I think, but I'll like summarize more concisely. He's saying that Iran wants to murder our president, they want to nuke Israel, and that's why we need to go to war with them. And what Tucker, little old Tucker here is saying is like, where's the evidence? Because Tucker, he's a piece of shit. Okay, I think he is a terrible person, and that's a whole other conversation. But he's on the wavelength, okay? He knows what's up. He pays attention. And he knows how Americans feel about this issue. So all he's saying is, where's the evidence? In order for you to get and I'm not saying that Americans have to be on board for us to go to war, okay? But it helps, okay? And to get them on board, you need facts. You need facts that are true, or at least that you can claim are true without being able to poke holes in it that are very obvious. So like what Tucker Carlson is doing here is he's saying like, hey, like come on, like just give me something. Give me something to work with. But Ted Cruz can't do it, man.
I mean this sincerely. So, all right.
He's not even a good liar. He's really not.
I think it's fair to say, in the interventionist world, you were a vocal, a vocal defender of the Iraq War.
I was a promoter of the Iraq War.
And
yeah.
You now, and he regrets it. Look, I think you think you were mistaken.
Yes, he was mistaken, and it was his biggest misstep in his entire career, in my opinion. Because the Iraq War, what is looking back on it, from the average American's perspective, is such an L. Okay, it like if you supported the Iraq War back then, that is like ew. That is icky. Why the fuck did you do that? So, Tucker Carlson, in his infinite wisdom, is, going to oppose the Iraq War now that it's convenient. And it's causing him to pontificate on why we might be getting into a conflict or war with Iran. And, I like that. I do like that. I still think that, if there were, any substantial reason that was convincing to the average person to go to war with Iran, Tucker Carlson would be fucking running with it immediately. Okay, he would be the he would be the Iranian war supporter number one. Obviously, he would be the first.
I think you were mistaken. That's okay. Look, people change and learn. That's part of the journey of being human.
What he did.
Your views have moved, though. In my view, they've gone way too far at the other end. And so I'm just totally confused.
I'm saying, hold on. Wait, this is one of the weirdest conversations I've ever had. I'm saying if it's true that Iran is trying to murder Trump, we need to move militarily against Iran immediately. That's not isolationism. That's that's a call to violence, which I'm calling for. If we believe that Iran is trying to murder our president, we need to strike Iran.
Okay, but isolationists say things like, well, then just nuke them, which is what you just said. Okay, which is kind of a weird...
Because I'm upset, because
that's not even what he said, though. Just nuke them? Just nuke them. That you think that's what Tucker Carlson is saying? No, man. No, man. Nobody, even Tucker Carlson, wants to drop a nuke. If we did that, it would change a lot of shit, I think. First of all, most of our allies are kind of like, starting to, like we don't want to get too close to America. Like they're distancing themselves. If we were to nuke another country, Iran, any other country, that would immediately just like totally fuck us in like world like nobody, no country would ever. I don't care if they did assassinate the president. If we nuke them, that's game over, okay? That is like you are playing with matches and gasoline at that point. No country will stand by us, except for Israel. Of course they will. Okay.
Taking you
but
seriously,
Israel
you don't
is
take your own statements.
I take my statements very seriously.
So I've asked you, where's the evidence this is true? And you said, well, they're trying to assassinate Brian Hook or something. Oh, which I'm against, by the way. I'm against hurting any American, period, no matter.
So you dispute that they're trying to murder?
I'm not disputing it at all.
Bolton?
I'm not disputing it at all.
They literally arrested the hitman with
yes,
Bolton.
I don't know why.
Yes, we dispute it. Yes. First of all, it's like very early in the timeline that you are claiming, that you are alleging. Okay, it's very early, so it's hard to know for sure, even if the facts were there. But there are no facts. There is no evidence. What the fuck are we talking about?
That's even relevant. I'm asking about the President of the United States.
Wait, it's not relevant that Iran hired hitmen to murder cabinet members in Trump's administration? That doesn't go to
I've already
how credible
said
is it that they're willing to spend money to do that.
Opposed to that. It's awful. I am against killing anybody, actually, and especially foreign government. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure Tucker Carlson is against killing anybody, yeah. Unless they are brown, then you can brutalize them as hard as you want.
I'm asking about your allegation and the Prime Minister of Israel's allegation that Iran is trying to murder the president.
Killing terrorists is a good thing. Killing people who are trying to murder Americans is a good thing. Because if you're America first, you want to protect America, and so killing Osama bin Laden was a fantastic
But you don't
day
really
for the
believe
world.
that they're trying to murder Trump, or
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Then why aren't you calling for military action against Tehran right now?
Because they're not very effective. In terms of hitmen, their hitmen are not very effective. I do think...
So they're hitmen, but not the bad kind, the efficient kind?
No,
what are you saying?
They're a weak country who is on its knees, and I think we need to...
Then why are we so afraid of them? Why are they the biggest threat if they're a weak country that's on its knees?
Because they're trying...
I'm trying to keep track.
They're trying to develop... Be a little less snarky.
I know, you're right. That is a problem that I have. I'm sorry.
They're trying to develop nuclear weapons. They are close to developing nuclear weapons.
And
even a weak country with a nuclear weapon. Look, I believe there is a very real possibility if the Ayatollah develops a nuclear weapon that he would detonate it either in Tel Aviv or New York or Los Angeles. And that would be utterly catastrophic. And I don't know what the chances are of that. Let me compare and contrast Iran to North Korea.
Wait, can I just ask one last question about trying to kill the president?
Again, it is utter delusion to think that Iran. Look, I'm not even saying that it would never happen, that Iran would nuke us or Israel. Why do I say that would never happen? Because of what has happened. Because of what Iran has had to deal with. Okay, they have had to deal with Israel for the past 100 years. And they have had to deal with America for the last 100 years supporting Israel. Okay? So, no, I can see that happening. Okay? But when I say that I can see it happening, it is so unlikely. It is so unlikely to happen. Because when you understand what the country of Iran has done, what the current regime has done, and how they have tried to keep the peace for the past 50 fucking years, that they've been actively combating the Israeli apartheid. Yeah, it is utter delusion to say that they would nuke us given the chance. Even if they had nukes, which they don't. Which makes this even funnier to fucking talk about.
You sincerely believe
because they don't have them.
That right now the Iranian government is trying to murder our president.
Yes.
You sincerely believe right now.
Absolutely.
And yet you are not calling for military action against the government that's trying to murder our president. Can you explain that?
I don't think they're very effective. I do think we should... By the way, America is supporting...
You're willing to take that risk?
I think we should protect the president and we should take out our enemies.
Well,
Israel is doing that right now.
But aren't they? Why would we outsource it to Israel if they're trying to? Your first
question was, why are you for regime change? That's a pretty good example of why I'm for regime change.
Okay, so you're saying we should just go in and take out the government of Iran. No. Why would we outsource it to Israel if they're trying to murder a president? Okay, you sound like the isolationist.
Yeah, I guess what Ted Cruz is trying to advocate here for is, like, he wants the intelligence community in America to secretly do a regime change like we used to do during the Cold War. But that is so fucking stupid because we can't do that. Like, okay, you want a regime change. Fine. We gotta go to war then. That's what Tucker Carlson is saying. Like, that cannot happen. You are so out of the loop if you think that is a possible thing.
What I'm saying on any military judgment is there needs to be a cost-benefit analysis of what are the risks versus what are the benefits. In this instance, I think it is enormously in America's interest to do what Israel is doing right now, take out Iran's senior military leadership and take out their nuclear capacity. That is benefiting America, and it is a good risk-reward. I would oppose invading Iran
it's so good
and putting boots on the ground to topple the government. If the risk got severe enough, I would support that, but I think the relative risk is not severe enough to justify that step at this time. What I would absolutely oppose under any circumstances is invading Iran and then staying and trying to turn them into a democracy. And part of where Iraq really went off the rails is not only did we topple someone who was fighting radical Islamic terrorists, who was a bad guy, but then we tried the vision of interventionists. It actually overlaps with the vision of a lot of Democrats. Let's go promote democracy in the world.
I agree.
And it is our military's job to kill the bad guys, to defend America. It's not their job to defend international norms. It's not their job. So I have zero desire for the U.S. military to turn Iran into Switzerland. Look, would it be nice if they suddenly became Switzerland? Sure. If I could wave a magic wand, great. But I'm not.
They are better than Switzerland. Are you fucking serious? Switzerland shot down American planes during World War II. Okay, they shot down Allied planes. Okay, I know that what he's saying here is Switzerland is neutral. Okay, ideally, Iran should be neutral, but Switzerland wasn't fucking neutral. They were just like equally discriminatory. That's not the same as being neutral. Okay, I'm sorry. Like I know what the common consensus is about Switzerland. But they shot down American planes. Okay, they shot down Nazi planes too. But they shot down anybody that flew over their airspace. They participated in World War II. They were not peaceful. They were not. They were. You can argue that they were neutral. Fine. Okay, they killed indiscriminately. Fine. They killed Nazis. Great. Still though, Iran is not like that. Okay, they're already Switzerland. They're already more peaceful than Switzerland. Do you understand? Do you understand? They are more peaceful than Switzerland. Inarguably, it's not even an argument to have.
I'm not going to send your kids or my kids to be in front of guns to go make that happen.
Well, bless you for that. I think that is the lesson that I learned from Iraq. I promoted that war. Apparently, unlike you, I was dumber. And I think that you just articulated the main lesson of it, which is it's hard to do that, and we're not good at it. But
I will.
Actually, you might be.
And so we are agreeing on that. I will say, as a corollary,
vehemently agreeing.
As a corollary, that doesn't mean that horrible evil.
This guy is talking about how he supported the Iraq war like it's a fucking badge of honor. He's like, yeah, I supported that war, even though it was a dumb idea. I supported that war. It was a stupid war. It was a dumb move. And you fooled my grandparents into supporting it, you fucking asshole. You piece of shit.
Evil dictators
you
are
fooled
okay.
my grandparents into
and going back
that.
to Reagan and the Cold War, we have lots of weapons.
Because they had you on the TV
I am happy to
and
highlight
they trusted
the brutality,
you.
the oppression, the human rights abuses of regimes, even though I don't want to invade them, because I think the bully pulpit of American leadership is really powerful. And I think dictatorships are terrified. So I've spent 13 years in the Senate. One of the things I do frequently is highlight dissidents in Iran and North Korea and China, in Venezuela. People are being tortured. Miriam Ibrahim in Sudan, who was sentenced to 100 lashes.
Why that's happening.
And then to be killed for the crime of being a Christian. And I repeatedly went to the Senate floor and shined a light on the government of Sudan. It was corrupt. It was evil. I practically begged Barack Obama, say her name. Ultimately,
I felt that way with the J6 prisoners.
Look, yes, and look.
Oh my God!
There is power to speaking out, and ultimately,
what the fuck? They're out, man. They are out of prison. I'm sorry, I pulled up the fucking AI. They are out of prison, bro. I felt the same way about the Jan6 prisoners. What prisoners?
International Obama.
What fucking prisoners? They are out. I'm sorry, I'll rewind it. Once again, more delusion. Once again. But anyway, yeah, like, one Christian gets killed in a country where they are persecuted for being Christian, and, like, what? We're supposed to be up in arms about it? Fucking Muslims are getting blown up into smithereens every day by our country. Yeah, I think that's a little bit more important, me personally. Do I think that, like, Christians are not persecuted anywhere? You know, no. Okay, Christians, they are sometimes. It's just far and few between, because the dominance of Western culture has fucking apparated in, like, every single country on the fucking planet. And most of the time, I think that, like, Christian, like, witch hunting Christians, you know, like, killing Christians, which doesn't fucking happen that often, is a direct consequence of colonialism, of, like, we're talking about fucking Sudan right now, man. If you understand the history of Sudan, yeah, you can, like, understand why they hate Christians, why they hate European Christians. Again, I'm not saying it's okay. I'm a fucking Christian. I don't want to get killed. I especially don't want my fellow Christians to get killed. But how can you say that, like, it's just because they hate Christians and they hate Christianity? They just, like, they're, like, evil savages. They're African savages. Bro, it is because of what we did. It's because of what we did to them, dumbass.
Her name. Ultimately,
I felt that way with the J6 prisoners.
Look, yes, look, there is power to speaking out, and ultimately, Obama never did say her name. He would not say her name. Ultimately, there was enough international condemnation. The government of Sudan let her go, and so she was not executed. And I actually I met her. So she had a 2-year-old son, Martin, and she gave birth to a little girl named Maya.
So nothing happened. What the fuck is he talking about? Why is he fucking talking about
in prison, waiting for the death sentence. They were not going to kill her until she gave birth. And they told her, we will not kill you if you will renounce Jesus. And she refused. And I met her. She was in D.C. speaking at a conference after she was released, obviously. Wow. And I asked her, she's a tiny woman, very small woman. I asked her, I said, when you were in that prison cell with your kids, how did you have the strength not to just give in to despair? I mean, I've never been threatened with murder unless I renounce my faith.
Yeah, man. I mean, me personally, this is unrelated, okay? It doesn't fucking matter what I would do in that situation. But I would just renounce Jesus, okay? I'm sorry. Like, I think he'd forgive me. I think Jesus would forgive me. Okay? I think he would. I think I'd take one for the team, big dog, okay? Like, look, I believe that I spread positive Christianity. Okay, I am a net positive force for Christianity. I believe that, and it's all I want to be. I just want, like we're a Christian nation. Okay, we are, like, we're founded on fucking Christianity, and we're killing and we're bombing. It has to stop. That is my entire, like, that's, like, the reason I fucking do this. Okay, but anyway, even I don't think Jesus would give a fuck if I were like, yeah, like, okay, like, I don't believe in Jesus, okay, just, like, don't kill me. Because I would go on, when I survive, I would go on to spread the word, to spread the gospel, which is really what Jesus wanted. All he wanted was peace on earth. Was hospitality for your neighbor. That's what he preached. He doesn't fucking care if you, like, say you don't believe in him, okay, to, like, get out of being killed, okay? He doesn't fucking care about that. That's why, like, these stories are just so fucking stupid to me. Like, why wouldn't you lie? I would.
And she just
I
said
would
to me,
just fucking lie. If they were going to kill me,
she said, Jesus,
if they were going to kill me for it, I would fucking lie. What?
Thankfully, you and I have not faced that circumstance. But I do think there is a responsibility.
There's still time.
There is, and I hope we don't. And actually, I'll use another example. John McCain, who you and I disagreed with on a lot of issues. I respected and admired him for his service and time as a prisoner of war. I think his policies, I disagreed with vehemently and fought against them. But the man fought for America, and he was thrown in prison, and he was tortured by Vietnam, and he was given the opportunity to be released early. And he turned it down because he thought it would be dishonorable to leave before his fellow servicemen and women. And when I first got here...
There were no women there, but...
Okay, man, you're right. When I first got here, McCain hated my guts, and he actually referred to me and Rand as wacko birds.
I remember.
I have up on the shelf, I have a baseball cap that a grassroots supporter gave me with a picture of Daffy Duck and labeled wacko birds, which I liked and laughed with. But when he did that, I went to the Senate floor, and I gave a speech praising John McCain. And it was the day he had attacked me publicly.
McCain, yeah.
And it happened to be, it was the 40th anniversary of his release from the Hanoi Hilton. And I just talked about what a privilege it is to serve with someone who suffered for his country, who served. And I didn't get into where we disagreed on policy on that speech. I just said, look, the man is an American hero, and I'm proud to serve with him. But that was meant to be a statement.
And what did Donald Trump have to say about that? And what the fuck did he say about John McCain being a prisoner of war? What an appreciative person Donald Trump is to our great American patriots. If you don't know what I'm talking about, by the way, Donald Trump, when he was talking about John McCain back in, I want to say 2016, it was during the 2016 election, he said, I like our soldiers that don't get captured. That's what he had to say about him. Yeah. And it was so petty, too. It was just because McCain wouldn't endorse him. That's why he said that. So if you think Donald Trump gives a fuck about our men and women in arms, think about that.
Also, that if you attack me, I'm going to praise you, not for things that are not praiseworthy. If I disagree with you, I will not be shy about saying it, but for things that are praiseworthy.
I remember that. It was 2013.
Yeah.
And I felt the same way. I went to his cell at the Hanoi Hilton, and
oh, wow.
I agree with you about McCain. I just want to end by asking you specifically about what's going to happen next in Iran and what should happen next. So you called for regime change. You said you don't favor the U.S. military participating in any kind of regime change. You said you don't think, and bless you for saying this, that the U.S. military should try and turn it into Belgium.
Yeah.
Thank God. But there is a third option where it turns into Syria, where it's this open wound and it causes massive migration and further destroys Europe, as Syria has.
Yeah.
And that's a huge cost, and where lots of people die and religious minorities get murdered in Syria again. Are you worried about that?
Oh, my God, man.
Sure. And listen, that lots of bad things can happen. Going back to what we talked about, the principle of defending America. I agree with President Trump.
Oh, my God.
That Iran with a nuclear weapon is an unacceptable risk to America.
I honestly think they want Europe to do another Holocaust. That's what they want. They want Europe to do another fucking Holocaust, but this time on the Muslims. It's how the fuck do you actually think that Europe is being taken over? What the fuck are you talking about, man? Whenever I hear somebody talking about this shit, I want to listen to them. But, once you start saying that, these migrants are, these evil, dirty migrants with their inferior culture are just, coming over here and doing crimes or whatever the fuck you say they're doing, you lose me, okay? You lose me at that point.
And we need to stop it. I agree with President Trump, and I'll make a point.
But he's not for regime change.
He's not. So he and I disagree. Look, I think he thinks it would be better. He has not said he's for it. And you know what? Look, it is consequential when the President of the United States says, I'm for regime change. So I understand why he hasn't. What he has said is he's drawn a red line and said, Iran will not have a nuclear weapon, and the only acceptable outcome is complete dismantlement. So they have centrifuges. They're enriching uranium right now. They're trying to develop a nuclear weapon. He said they must have complete dismantlement. I led 52 senators, Republican senators, in a letter where we said we agree with President Trump. That's the red line, complete dismantlement. I agree with President Trump. I agree with him supporting Israel, taking out Iran's military leadership, taking out their nuclear capability. And I'll point out, look, if you look the first term, I am hard-pressed to think of a single foreign policy decision Donald Trump made the first term that I disagree with. And that's not entirely accidental, because I spent a lot of time the first term in the Oval Office with him. And what happened in the first term often is you would have in the administration, you had interventionists in the administration, you had isolationists. And they disagreed. They would fight within the administration. And often what it would give is an opportunity for me to come in and say, hey, there's a middle path here that President Trump agreed with frequently. And it's worth noting, in the first term, he most assuredly was not an isolationist. Look, he took out General Soleimani, which I emphatically agree with. And in fact, I introduced a resolution that we voted on the Senate floor commending him for taking out General Soleimani, who was the leader of the IRGC and who was responsible for killing over 600 American servicemen and women. When Trump came in, ISIS had a caliphate that had grown up under Obama that was about the size of the state of Indiana. And Trump came in and utterly decimated them. He killed the terrorists, took away their caliphate, and defeated them. And he also took out Baghdadi, the head of ISIS. I mean, those are not the actions of an isolationist, but at the same time— I don't even know what isolationist is. It's just a slur designed to control. I mean, I've never met an isolationist. I don't even know what that means. Okay, Rand Paul is my colleague. Rand is an isolationist. Okay, and Tucker, you've become one, and I don't mean it as a slur. You consistently say, you have said— actually, I want to read from your newsletter, because if you ask what an isolationist is, your newsletter a couple of days ago, you wrote— Iran cannot have a nuclear bomb, and we're hoping to get back to the negotiating table. We will see. There are several people in leadership in Iran that will not be coming back, Trump said, following the strikes. Right. It's worth taking a step back and wondering how any of this helps the United States. We can't think of a single way. Okay, that to me is the essence of isolationism. And let me just ask you, when the Ayatollah chants death to America, I believe him. Do you not believe him? Do you think he doesn't mean it when he says death to America?
Well, I think he hates America. For sure. And I'm opposed to that.
And do you think he's willing to act on it? It's not just hate America. He also is leading a country and trying to develop a nuclear weapon.
Under certain circumstances, for sure. So the question is, do you act in a way that makes that more or less likely? And that's a tough call. It's something that you can debate. One of the ways you shut down debate is by calling people names like isolationists, pretending they're like pro-Nazi or something, or as you did, claiming I'm an anti-Semite. Right, that's not a way to get to a solution or have a rational conversation. That's a way to make people be quiet. And I'm against that. And
okay, so if you don't like the label isolationist, how would you— Look, Rand, and I served with Rand. Rand is a friend of mine, but Rand opposes every military action in every circumstance.
Of course I don't oppose every military. This whole thing is infantile, and you know that it is. It's a way to call people names.
So which of Trump's military actions do you support, and you disagree with them all?
And make them be quiet.
Give me another name. If you don't like that, I'm not trying to have you be quiet. We've been talking an hour and a half. I'm asking, if you don't like the name isolationist, how would you describe it?
I would describe myself in the same way you falsely described yourself in this conversation.
Falsely?
Yes, falsely.
What did I say falsely?
You said that the only thing that matters in a foreign policy decision is whether it helps the United States.
I didn't say the only, I said the predominant.
That's what I understood. Okay. So let me revise what you said and apply it to myself and say the only thing that matters is whether or not it serves the United States. And I feel very stung by what happened in Iraq, if I'm being honest. Possibly because, unlike you, I guess, I supported it, and I saw us get drawn into it in a way that nobody anticipated, and I saw the cost, just about $3 trillion? And the cost on so many levels to the United States was just so profound, and
it was clearly a mistake.
Gosh, it reminds me of Kaiser Wilhelm in 1914 saying, my men will be back by the time the leaves turn. And of course, that destroyed Christian Europe. So it's like you don't really know where these things are going once the shooting starts. That's my only point. And calling people names, anti-Semite, isolationist, to get them to stop talking is not the way to serve your country. That's all I'm saying.
So I'm trying to have a real and serious conversation. Right. And look, a lot of this has been contentious. I wish it had not, because as we started out by saying, you and I agree vehemently on 80% of the issues. This discussion is focused on the 20% where we don't. I will say, look, on Iraq, you look at the 2016 presidential campaign where you had 17 Republicans running. If you set Rand aside, and his views are on one side, there were only two candidates on that stage that opposed the Iraq war. Me and Donald Trump were the only two. Everyone else thought the Iraq war was a great thing. I think it was a disaster. So you and I agree on that as well. In my view, I think your foreign policy has gone too far. So, let me ask you, is there a military action Trump has undertaken that you agree with? Because I've not heard anything.
Look, I would say it's really simple. I believe in self-defense. That's why I keep firearms at home. I think it's morally justified to defend yourself, your family, your property, your nation. And so to the extent that you can deter a threat through violence always being the least appealing choice. Violence always being, if I can finish, always being a tragedy. I think you can justify the use of violence in self-defense. That's my personal view, and that applies to me and to the country that I live in. Those are my views. That's not an isolationist view. It's not an anti-Israel view. It's not an anti-Semitic view, with apologies. It is, I think, a pretty common sense view. But my problem is that lawmakers in Washington are light on detail with these things, and they speak, as you do, entirely in moral terms. These people are bad. These people are...
I'm not speaking entirely in moral terms. I'm not interested in killing bad guys. I'm interested in killing people who are trying to kill us.
If we had...
That's different. I'm not engaged in morality.
Are you now? Because you told me that the government of Iran is presently trying to assassinate Donald Trump. And that
is undisputed. There's literally nobody who disputes that fact.
Then why don't you support military action right now against Iran?
We are engaged in military action right now.
Why don't you support offensive military action?
We're bombing the crap out of them. Israel is, and we're supporting them. Israel is.
Okay. So why shouldn't the U.S. military defend its own president? I don't understand that.
Look, and it goes back to...
Because you don't really believe it's true. That's why.
Nobody disputes it, Tucker. Did you land on the moon? What other conspiracies do you not believe? Was 9/11 an inside job? I mean, like what?
So I've asked you the names of these people. I
don't know the names of the Iranian hitmen. I know it because the U.S. military and the intelligence agencies have testified before Congress repeatedly.
And what did they say?
That Iran is trying to murder Donald Trump and has hired hitmen. Do I know the name of the hitmen? No, I'm sorry. And I don't think we do either, because we would apprehend them if we knew their names.
Then why don't you take it seriously enough to support killing the Ayatollah in response to protect our president? But you don't. This doesn't even make any sense. And you're calling me an isolationist. If I believed that...
You can do it if you wanna. I mix up two different kinds of weed, call that Nirvana. or call that Osama. Hey, that's relevant. Yeah, they've been talking about a bunch of nothing this entire time. I feel like they've been rehashing shit that they said earlier in the conversation. There was something that I caught earlier that I had something to say about, but I fucking forgot what it was.
If that was true, I would support military action against the government of Iran.
Okay, that's interesting, because there is literally...
You can't kill our president.
All right, out of 535 members of Congress, I am not aware of one who disputes that Iran is trying to murder Donald J. Trump. That's not even the looniest Democrat doesn't dispute that. So I don't... You're saying if you believed what is, I think, a fact that they are trying to.
You think it's a fact? Yes. What is the fact exactly?
That they've hired hitmen.
In the United States?
Yes.
Americans?
Yeah, he's not in Iran, so they haven't hired hitmen.
No, but are they the hitmen American?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I'm telling you what, and by the way, I'm not the CIA. I'm not the Department of Defense. I'm telling you what they have told us.
I'm not disputing it. I'm merely saying
we are.
That I'm not. I'm saying the logic train has a massive hole in it. If you believe that's true, then you should, by definition, support killing the people trying to kill our president. But you don't support that. Now, Tucker, so I'm wondering what's going on here.
Tucker, you took offense to the word isolationist, and I genuinely don't mean it as a pejorative. I disagree with it. But if you don't like that term, I don't know how else to describe what is a coherent foreign policy that says we're surrounded by two giant nations. By the way, isolationism has long been a school of foreign policy.
I believe in self-defense. I'm not, but not into the slurs, the anti-Semite stuff. I just don't like that. I'm telling you what I believe.
But is there a single military action Trump took that you agree with? So did you agree with taking out General Soleimani?
Oh, I don't know. It turned out better than I thought. I guess.
I mean, you said at the time it would lead us to World War III.
I was worried about it. I've seen that.
Well, but that proved not the case.
I was wrong, as I have been many times.
Did you agree with taking out the ISIS caliphate?
Well, if we took the ISIS caliphate, why are they running Syria right now? And you're for that. Why is that?
What do you mean? I didn't say I'm for that.
You don't seem to have a problem with it.
I didn't say
ISIS is now running Syria. You're like, we'll see.
No,
Look, I mean, I know why.
By the way,
I know why.
Push Assad out. Assad toppled.
It's hilarious.
You know why I don't care?
Assad's bad, but no, ISIS runs Syria, but that's fine. We'll just kind of wait and see on ISIS. Not a big deal.
You know
not a big deal. They're trying to kill Trump.
Hold on a second. I want to get back. You know why I don't care, and why, and you do your trademark smirky laugh. I know why you don't care.
What are you even talking
about? Why don't I care?
I don't know why. You tell me. Because you think it's okay because they're not making angry noises or something, but by your own standards, ISIS is so immoral that they must die, but now they're running Syria, and you don't think that we should take military action against the government of Syria because why? They're ISIS.
What I said is I don't know how good or bad it'll be. Look, I wasn't pushing Assad out. He fell. He fell on his own, in part because he was heavily supported by Hezbollah, and when Israel took out the Hezbollah leadership, he lost his basis of support.
But the current ISIS leadership, you don't think is bad? You can't say it's terrible that ISIS runs a country?
I am concerned about it.
Concerned? Aren't you horrified?
I want to see what they do.
But so you got to wait and see attitude on ISIS now?
On the government of Syria, they are not actively, that I am aware of, trying to murder Americans. And that's a real dividing line. Are you trying to murder Americans or not?
I'm just saying it's a little weird that we waged this war against ISIS and now they're running a country in the Mediterranean. I think that people would be very, very upset about that, but you don't seem very upset about that. By the way, did
you agree with Trump taking out al-Baghdadi, the head of ISIS?
He is just
I'm totally opposed to ISIS, and what I care about is results, actually, and if taking out the head of ISIS ends ISIS, I guess I'm for it. But now ISIS runs Syria. Okay, so I'm wondering how does this work?
I mean, my point is...
At the time, I mean, I've taken so many different positions over the years, some of which have been wrong. I really do my best to be honest and correct if they are and admit that I was wrong. I'm not one of these people who's like, I've always been consistent. No, my views change all the time because the facts change all the time. You're not going to get consistency from me. You're only going to get sincerity.
Well, I will say this, and look, I believe you're sincere.
Yeah.
But...
I'm not God. I'm just some guy watching, trying to figure out the right thing for America.
And I think because you believe you were mistaken, and I agree previously, I think you've overcorrected.
Overcorrected? I'm worried about turning this mess in Iran into a much larger mess. That's the concern.
And by the way, that's a reasonable worry.
Look, I know it's reasonable. And I know you've been like, you're like ready to call me all these names for asking, you're just asking questions. Yes, I am. So here's my question to you. If the Ayatollah is killed in Iran, and he very well could,
if there's a war.
I have just read in the paper this morning that Israel tried to take him out twice, and Trump told them not to.
I have read that. I don't have independent confirmation one way or the other.
Do you think that they should take him out?
So I actually talked about it. As you know, I do a podcast every week, Verdict with Ted Cruz, and I actually talked about it in the latest podcast. And I said, look, I've seen the reporting that says that Trump asked them not to take out the Ayatollah. And what I said in the podcast is I think it's reasonable for them to decide not to try to take him out. What they've done is targeted just about the entire top level of the military, the people that actually conduct the war. I can see an argument that taking out both the head of state and a religious leader could make him a martyr and could cause more problems than it's worth. And by the way, if you take out the Ayatollah, I don't know if the next guy isn't just as bad. And so I am...
What happens to the country?
I don't know, but you mentioned before, I want to go back to this. You said something like, you, like most other politicians, are engaged in moral terms. And let me be clear, I am talking about national interest. I am talking about protecting America. So there are bad guys on planet Earth that I don't think we should take out, even though they're bad guys.
Good.
I'll call them bad guys, but I'm not willing to use U.S. military force to take them out. In this instance, what Israel is doing is taking out their capacity to build nuclear weapons. Why? Because they judge the risk is too high if they got nuclear weapons.
I understand that. I mean, I understand that. I think it's in progress. I think it'll probably be achieved, probably with U.S. military support. Who knows? But the president said he's for that.
And by the way, where the military support is most needed is Fordow, which is it's a bunker that's built under a mountain.
Right.
And Israel's taken out most of the rest, like Natanz, which is their big enrichment site. They bombed the hell out of it. Fordow was deliberately built deep into a mountain so that Israel couldn't take it out. And there's an active discussion because the U.S. has bunker buster bombs that are big enough to take out Fordow.
30,000 pounds.
Yeah. Yes. And Israel doesn't. So the one military piece
nor the aircraft to fly them.
Correct.
Right. But here's, I guess, what bothers me is that I said 2 weeks ago the real goal here is regime change in Iran. It's not.
I don't think that's Trump's goal.
Well, it's your goal. It's Israel's goal. I'm not attacking anyone. I'm just saying it's important to be honest and not lie and not attack people for telling the truth.
So I believe I've been assiduously honest in this. But words matter. You said the real goal here is regime change, and it's your goal. And I want to be clear.
Well, you said it was your goal.
I want to be clear because words matter. Do I support regime change and would I like a government that doesn't hate America and isn't trying to kill us in Iran? Yes, that's a good outcome. Is that the objective of these military strikes? I don't think necessarily. I don't know if it's Israel's. It's not my objective. My objective is taking out...
Should it be the U.S. if Israel decides we're going to decapitate the government and try to foment an uprising against it, should the United States participate in that operation in any way?
Look, I have not called for killing the Ayatollah. And there is, nations in war generally refrain from attacking and killing heads of state. Now, the Ayatollah doesn't. He's trying to kill Trump. We talked about that.
But we shouldn't punish him for it.
Look, there has been a long-standing... Nations in war have refrained from killing heads of state.
It's definitely happening.
I have not publicly called for killing the Ayatollah. What I've called for is doing whatever is necessary to stop him from getting nuclear weapons. In the first Trump term, what that meant was maximum pressure. So in the first Trump term, I spent a lot of time urging the president to withdraw from the disastrous Iranian nuclear deal that Obama had. President Trump agreed with me. He did that. And then I urged him to end the oil waivers and to sanction the hell out of the country. And it ended up crippling their economy. So Iran at the time was selling 2 million barrels of oil a day. 1 million barrels of oil a day. When President Trump ended the oil waivers, it cut their sales to 300,000 barrels a day. At the end of the Trump term, the Iranian economy was in shambles. They had massive inflation. I think the regime was teetering. I think it might have fallen. I would use economic sanctions and I would use moral suasion to try to effectuate
if you
regime change.
Okay, so you topple the regime and by whatever means, what happens then? How many people live in Iran, by the way?
I don't know the population.
At all?
90
no, I don't know the population.
million?
You don't know the population of the country you seek to topple?
How many people live in Iran?
92 million.
Okay. Yeah.
How could you not know that?
Damn.
I don't sit around memorizing population tables.
Well, it's kind of relevant because you're calling for the overthrow of the government.
Why is it relevant whether it's 90 million or 80 million or 100 million? Why is that relevant?
Because if you don't know anything about the country...
I didn't say I don't know anything about
Okay, what's the ethnic mix of Iran?
They are Persians and predominantly Shia. Okay, this is cute.
It's not even, you don't know anything about Iran. So
okay, I am not the Tucker Carlson expert on Iran.
You're a senator who's calling for the overthrow of the government.
You're the one who claims
anything about the country.
No, you don't know anything about the country. You're the one who claims they're not trying to murder Donald Trump. You're the one who can't figure out if it was a good idea to kill General Soleimani, and you said it was bad.
You don't believe they're trying to murder Trump.
Yes, I do.
Because you're not calling for military strikes against them in retaliation. And if you really believe that,
we're carrying out military strikes today.
You said Israel was.
Right, with our help. I said we. Israel is leading them, but we're supporting them.
Well, you're breaking news here, because the U.S. government last night denied, the National Security Council spokesman Alex Pfeiffer denied on behalf of Trump that we were acting on Israel's behalf in any offensive capacity.
No, we're not bombing them. Israel's bombing them.
You just said we were.
We are supporting Israel.
High stakes. You're a senator. If you're saying the United States government is at war with Iran right now, people are listening.
Okay, we are not bombing them.
Yeah, he wants to
Israel is bombing them. Why did you do the snide?
He wants to be the ally, but we're not really there. We're not really helping them, but like we are supporting them. But it's so fucking stupid, dude. It's so dumb. And it's all just to get us to go to war with Iran. That's what this is all about. Not that I really need to remind anyone that's been watching for this long, but that is still what this is all about. Should we go to war with Iran or not?
Okay. What do you mean? Because this is super high stakes stuff. This is a huge country that borders a lot of other important countries. A lot of the world's energy comes from there.
So you
don't want another disaster. You don't want to be reckless.
The Ayatollah refers to Israel as the little Satan and America as the great Satan. Do you believe him when he says it's the great Satan? Do you think if the Ayatollah could murder both of us right now that he would? I do. I believe it.
Okay, I assume no good faith on the part of the Ayatollah.
No, not
and
good
if your
faith.
implication is like, I'm pro-Ayatollah or something.
No, it's not good faith. It's that...
Just saying, you're a lawmaker, you're a powerful person in Washington. This is the most powerful country in the world. If you're calling for toppling a government, it's incumbent on you to know something about the country and to think through the consequences of that. And you haven't, and you don't. And I'm saying that's reckless.
Okay, you engage in reckless rhetoric with no facts. And to be clear,
I'm not calling for the overthrow of a government. You
put out a newsletter attacking Donald Trump and calling him complicit.
I've never attacked Donald Trump.
Yes, you have. And by the way,
I campaigned for Donald Trump.
Okay, yes.
And this is after anti-Semitism, this is the last refuge. You're an anti-Semite and you hate Trump.
Okay,
I love Trump.
I will read. You put out a whole newsletter saying Trump has abandoned America first. And here's what Trump said in response. Yes, well, considering that I'm the one that developed America first, and considering that the term wasn't used until I came along, I think I'm the one who decides that. For those people who say they want peace, you can't have peace if Iran has a nuclear weapon. So for all of those wonderful people who don't want to do anything about Iran having a nuclear weapon, that's not peace. That was directed at you.
Man, you got me. Busted.
No, I'm just saying.
Look, my views.
Yo, he had that
I like Trump. I campaigned for Trump. I know Trump talked last night. I'm not against Trump. You know that.
But you're against his foreign policy.
I think that we should be very careful about entering into more foreign wars that don't help us when our country is dying.
When you say
our
don't
country
help
is
us,
dying.
Look, yes, focus on our country. I'm all for it. But the naivete.
You don't even know how much money this costs. You don't know anything about the country whose government you want to overthrow, and you're calling me reckless.
I want to stop a lunatic who wants to murder us from getting nuclear weapons that could kill millions of Americans.
Fair.
You say, I can't see how that benefits America in any way. That is bizarre. And by the way, isolationism, your foreign policy is the foreign policy of Jimmy Carter and Barack Obama.
Oh, absolutely.
And it doesn't work.
I'm a big leftist. This is so silly. Now I'm Jimmy Carter and Barack Obama. Okay. Let me just say one last thing.
So how is your foreign policy different from Jimmy Carter's?
I guess,
please.
Maybe in the context of this conversation.
In the context of this.
I'm like slightly siding with Tucker Carlson. It's just I cannot side with him in this particular situation because he is overtly anti-Semitic. He is. Like he just is, okay? Like I don't know what to tell you. Like he does side with Israel. He conflates being Israeli with being Jewish. He did earlier in this debate conveniently draw a distinction between the state of Israel and Judaism when this motherfucker Ted Cruz did not do that, which was, a gotcha moment. But he only uses that fact to, intellectually strong-arm his opponent.
Brings up a lot in this interview that his foreign policy is based on the Bible.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I was listening to that. That was insanity. I will say that I'm a Christian, and I had some opinions about that relating to that.
The Bible talks about the ancient kingdom of Israel.
Yeah, I know. They try to say that the current state of Israel is a continuity of the biblical Israel, which is. Yeah, which is not accurate. Not accurate at all. like a very gross misrepresentation of the state of it, of the contemporary state of Israel. But anyway, I still don't like side with Tucker Carlson. He is like, these two are in agreement about Iran being an evil, savage, Muslim, violent nation, which they are not. They are a peaceful nation. They just are, like, factually, objectively. If you just like look at what they've done, what the state of Iran has done, they're just not violent. They're incredibly peaceful given the circumstances. Domestically, they are pretty violent. They do kill LGBT people. You know, they lack civil rights for gays, for like anybody that is not you know, cis and straight. That much is true. But internationally, they are a incredibly peaceful country. And like all you really need to know that is to know about the history of Israel, okay, which they've been living next to for the past 100 years almost, or 80 years.
Another thing that gets brought up a lot is the 60% enriched uranium, which is used primarily in medical devices. Iran being a leading exporter of medical devices.
I actually didn't even know that. I didn't know about medical devices that use uranium. What I do know is that I don't care if they have nukes. Even if they literally had nukes and we knew about it, I still would not think that that is justification for invading them or toppling the government there, toppling the regime.
They don't have nukes, and that's why a war has started with them.
They don't have nukes.
That's why we're trying to start a war with them.
Well, no, I don't really think that that's the case either. I think that we're trying to start a war with them because they have resources that we can get cheaper if we, you know, destabilize the nation. Of course, like, you know, they have stuff that we want, oil and otherwise, other natural resources. They have enriched uranium as well that we want. And America will stop at nothing to attain that. Well, maybe not at nothing. It really just depends on how hard we're willing to go militarily on this. And how hard we're willing to go depends on the consent of the public. And that is why AIPAC, which they've talked a lot about in this interview, and similar organizations are campaigning so hard to get politicians to, like, be in defense of Israel. Okay, this is exactly what they want. Okay, that's what I'm saying. They, like, Americans, when I say Americans, I mean the richest Americans, the oligarchs. They want access to any country's resources, but especially one like Iran, where it is politically convenient to paint them as the demon and then go to war with them. But anyway, they don't have nukes, and even if they did, I wouldn't give a fuck. Well, I might give a fuck because our country would give a fuck, but I wouldn't give a fuck that they have nukes by itself because they would not use them, okay? And I am more confident in that than I would be, you know, certainly saying that, like, Israel would use them, whether or not, like the idea that Iran would nuke someone before Israel is complete delusion, complete and utter delusion. It's crazy. But they don't have nukes, and so for that reason, there is no justification, and even if it was, it wouldn't be a justification. Okay,
I don't even know what you're talking about. Jimmy Carter?
So
what century is this? I am the product of the last 25 years watching carefully, being involved in the periphery, and I see an unending string of foreign policy disasters that have impoverished and hurt.
Unending string.
An unending string. They would include Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Syria, and our inability to stop the Houthis, by the way, in Yemen, which exposes us as weak, and I grieve over that. So these are failures. You helped preside over some of them as a member of the Senate.
What failures, foreign policy failures, have I presided over?
Well, we were unable to beat Russia in the war that you supported against Russia. You've been spending the last 3 years telling us that Vladimir Putin is evil and we're going to beat him with other people's children, and 1 million of those kids are now dead. You've never apologized for that. That was a full failure.
By the way, look, the number of falsehoods you lay out just in one statement are rather.
You haven't supported the war against Russia?
Are rather stunning. So the war against Russia was caused, which I had explained in great detail, by Joe Biden's weakness.
But you supported the war.
If you want to talk, we can talk Russia and Ukraine. I'm happy to talk about it.
Do you think that's been a success?
No, it's been an absolute disaster.
Okay, but you supported it. Shouldn't you apologize?
No, you should apologize. I'm not going to engage in the demanding of apologies. So I'm
like, that's my point. Is all these failures and no one ever says I'm sorry.
Matter, or do you just throw out if you want to talk, we can talk.
Okay, I do. I want to know why. That seems like a true disaster for the United States. You have supported it.
Do you believe Joe Biden's weakness caused the war in Ukraine?
I think Joe Biden's aggression caused it.
His aggression? What aggression?
He demanded that Ukraine join NATO. How does that help the United States?
It is a terrible idea, and I have vigorously opposed Ukraine joining NATO.
And so that's what caused the war. I was saying this earlier. I don't think that Ted Cruz cares about his approval because, like, he tweeted about hentai with his kids. He was like, yeah, like, I love hentai, and, like, my kids love it too, and, like, we talk about it all the time. And, like, that did not ruin his career. Like, it doesn't fucking matter. I was talking about this earlier. I was like, why won't Republicans just take the L on a person like Ted Cruz? Just like lose one election and then he's gone, and then he'll never run again in that district. That's all you would have to do. I mean, it's too late now. He's been reelected too many times. But, like, if they had just that election, specifically in, like, I think that was, like, 2016 or 2018, if they had just, like, let him lose, if they had just not turned out to vote, he would have been disgraced. He would have never come back. Okay, but now it's too late. And it's like, why? Why can't, like, you could have gotten a different Republican candidate, a more normal one, perhaps. But
can't we go back to the simpler days of, like, oh, this candidate got caught with a hooker?
Yeah, I don't know. I played that video for you yesterday where the guy was like, yeah, and that ruined his career. I don't know why. I don't know what happened. It happened so fast too. Like, now nothing can ruin your career as a politician. It's a good time to be a politician. Let's be real.
No, it's not.
Let's be real. Except for maybe all.
Do you want to know what caused the war? Look, you do the dismissive. You're not actually interested in facts. You're like,
okay. Tell me. It seems super obvious. You're absolutely right, and I'm sorry. That is a tick of mine that is wrong, and I mean this with sincerity. I'm sorry to do that to you. I just think it seems so obvious that sending Kamala Harris to the NATO Security Conference to say you're going to join NATO is what triggered the invasion days later.
Okay, so can I? This will take a few minutes to lay out because it's complicated, but I think the facts matter. I think two things caused the war in Ukraine. Number one, I think Biden's incredible weakness and the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan. Now, I believe we need to leave Afghanistan, but not with the incompetence that led to 13 servicemen and women being murdered by terrorists there. The way Biden did that was disastrous, and I think our enemies looked to the commander-in-chief and said, this president is weak. And when that withdrawal was so disastrous, I said publicly at the time, the chances of Putin invading Ukraine have just risen tenfold.
Right.
But secondly, and this is critically important.
I agree, that was awful, the withdrawal.
And it was a major cause of, our enemies all said, hey, this president is weak. And so it invited, and by the way, look, I despise war, and I think weakness and isolationism produces war because it invites aggression from our bad guys. It's why I agree with Ronald Reagan's peace through strength. The best way you avoid war is being strong enough that your enemies don't want to mess with you. But let's get back to Ukraine and Russia. Look.
Nah, man.
Putin
the way to prevent war, get this. The way to stop war from happening is to stop bombing countries. Is to stop dropping bombs on them. That's the best way to stop war. We gotta appear we already appear powerful. In other countries where people aren't maybe so smart, they say America is a paper tiger. Okay? What that means is we already appear strong. Clearly that is not enough. I wonder why. Okay, anyway, America isn't a paper tiger, obviously. The fucking Al-Qaeda found that out the hard way. But that's what they thought, too. That's what they thought. They thought that our military was all show and no bite. And anyway, it's just like, countries being afraid of us is not the answer to this. It's not going to stop war from happening. The only thing that will stop war is for us to stop brutalizing indigenous populations. That's it. Just fucking stop bombing.
Wake up 2 years ago and decided he wanted to invade Ukraine. He's wanted to invade Ukraine for decades. Putin has referred to the collapse of the Soviet Union as, quote, the greatest geopolitical disaster of the 20th century. And Putin has long been explicit. His desire is to reassemble the old Soviet Union and, in fact, reassemble the Russian Empire that was even bigger than that. If you want to reassemble the Soviet Union, the natural place to start is Ukraine.
Do you really believe that Putin has territorial designs on Eastern Europe?
Yes.
What countries?
He has said that you can go and read his. Hold on. I don't want to lose the narrative of what happened, so we can go back and do that. But I don't want to lose telling the story first. So let me explain this, and then if you want to go back, we can take all sorts of digressions. But just give me a couple of minutes to lay out the facts of what happened. He has wanted to invade Ukraine a long time, and he's done it before. In 2014, he invaded Ukraine, invaded Crimea. When Barack Obama was president, he invaded the southern portion. He did not invade the rest of the country. Why? And the reason is the principal source of revenue for Russia is oil and gas, and the natural gas pipelines run right through the country of Ukraine, and he didn't want to jeopardize his ability to get gas to Europe. So in 2015, Putin started a project called Nord Stream 2.
Did anything happen in 2014?
It's literally, by the way, literally every single senator has a vacation home. Literally all of them have 2 homes. In fact, all of them have more than 2 homes. The senator with the least number of homes, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the senator, okay, we're talking about senators, not Congress people, is Bernie Sanders, and he has 3 homes. He has a vacation home, he has one in his home state of Vermont, and he has a cabin in the woods that was a gift from his in-laws. And he has the least number of homes of any sitting senator that I know of. So all of them have more places to stay than he has. And it's just, like, ridiculous. Yeah, like, people have tons of homes. It's crazy that our representatives can afford that when the average person that they're representing can't even afford 1 home. But, yeah, I mean, that's just, like, that's the way it is. People be having extra houses. In
terms of what?
Wasn't there a coup in Ukraine run by the Obama administration?
Let me finish telling. I told you we'll take lots of digressions in a second. Let me finish telling the narrative. 2015, Putin began building Nord Stream 2. Nord Stream 2 is an undersea pipeline that runs from Russia to Germany. The entire purpose of Nord Stream 2 is when it was completed and turned on, it would let Russia circumvent Ukraine and get its gas straight to Europe. In 2019, Nord Stream 2 was almost complete, and the conventional wisdom in Washington was this is terrible, but there's nothing we can do about it. I didn't believe that. So
the reason that I don't like attack rich people more so than I already do is because, like, we, like, you know, you can think about our country as being the rich people. Like, this is something that Republicans talk about all the time, you know, that our country, if you live here, you're more fortunate than most people. That's accurate. You know, we are the 1% of the global population.
Most of the globe does not have running water. Like, the fucking...
True.
My vape...
That's changing very quickly.
This is fucking alien technology. Might as well be. Or, like, fucking unfathomable to...
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about all that,
like,
but...
alien...
I don't know about all that.
Wrong phrasing. I just think, like... It would be very unrealistic for someone living, like, say, in... I'm trying to think of a good example.
Bel Air.
No.
Oh, a poor country. Sudan. You were talking about Sudan earlier.
Couldn't fathom having, like, a little electronic cigarette for, like, $20.
True, but anyway, the reason that I draw that comparison is not necessarily to humanize rich people. It's just to say that even when the work is done here, there's more work to be done globally. Yeah. We can't just stop at uplifting our population, although that is the main prerogative right now. You know, we must uplift all people, all working people, especially.
I think it's really weird growing up and being taught, like, oh, U.S. is the U.S. is like, oh, that's the peace country. That's the country that helps the whole world be better. And then, like, now we're growing and just none of that shit was ever true.
I think it's just banking on... No, it's not that it was never true. I don't agree with that. I think that at first, at the inception of our country, we defended ourselves from the British, and that was the Revolutionary War. But we continued to defend ourselves from British tyranny for like another 100 years, or almost 100 years. And then we had a civil war, which was about slavery. blah, blah, blah. And then we had World War II, which we didn't get into early enough. And also our rich people supported the Nazis. Okay, they donated to the Nazis. But eventually we did get into that war, and we were on the right side. You know, we did fight the fascists, and that was the last just war that we had. Okay, after that, it was war on communism. You know, it was like fucking with other countries because they aligned themselves with Russia, and it was stupid. It was stupid. We should have, like, I get why we did it, because if we had left ourselves out of it, then we would have gotten surpassed by the USSR. But we should have just let it happen. Like, that's what we should have done. But the capitalist here, the profit motive would not allow them to do that. And that's why we did what we did.
I think without any, like, U.S. involvement at all through world history, I think the USSR still would have fallen.
You're wrong about that. You are so wrong. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say, because, like, if we didn't, maybe they would have. It's hard to say, because, like, if we didn't do it, we did. What I'm saying is, we did so much shit that, like, the idea that we didn't do any of that, it would be like a completely different world.
No, like, we definitely did something.
Yeah, so, like, who knows?
It was inevitable that it would have happened.
Maybe because Stalin favored the 5-year plan, and that set up the USSR for, like, not doing so well in the coming decades. But I don't know.
I'm not saying,
they did pretty well considering what we did to them. Like, we toppled every government that aligned themselves with them, and then also sanctioned. We did a lot of sanctions on them, and basically made it impossible for them to effectively trade with the rest of the world, because we also toppled all of their allies. But yeah, I mean, it's just hard to say. It's like, you know, alternate history and whatnot.
Drafted sanctions legislation that was targeted to stop the pipeline. My legislation passed the Senate with overwhelming bipartisan support. It passed the House, and Donald Trump signed it into law.
Can I ask, why wouldn't you want Germany to have cheap energy?
Because it empowers Russia. And I believe in making our enemies weaker and our friends stronger.
Has blowing up Nord Stream made Germany stronger?
Not being dependent on Russia has made Germany stronger.
Just, you think
Germany doesn't give a fuck because they already have an abundant energy resource, okay? It's just that it's not good for the environment. It's cheap and it's easy to mine because it's coal. It's called like earth coal or something. I believe they call it Erde. Something like that. The German word for earth is Erde, and then coal. Okay, but anyway, the reason that they mine that is because it is cheap. It is literally coal mixed with dirt, and they burn it, and it pumps a bunch of CO2 in the atmosphere, but it's just, like, really easy to mine. Okay, you just, like, get a tractor or like a bulldozer, or not a bulldozer, but like a you know, one of those, like, an excavator, and you just dig it up. It's just lying there on the surface. In a sheet. But yeah, I mean, the idea that fucked over Germany's, like, they were already, look, Germany already doesn't care about nuclear energy, okay, because I think because of Chernobyl, okay, they're, like, scared. I think that's, like, how they get the broader public to agree to it, but mainly it's just because sheet coal is cheap. It's cheap as fuck. Okay, they just, like, you know, run a tractor over it and like scoop it up, and then it's done. Okay, there's, like, no more refinement after that. So, yeah, Germany, like, they did have that pipeline, okay, but it consequently it wouldn't have mattered anyway. Like, if Russia tomorrow. Let's say if it never happened, okay, and Russia tomorrow decided, like, hey, you know, Germany, like, do what we say or else. Germany would choose or else, okay? They would, because they don't have to, they already have the energy, okay? That's it. Like, they don't have to find somewhere else to get it. And they're already doing it because it's cheaper. Okay, and, like, anyway, it's not just because it's cheaper, it's also because the far right has, you know, successfully gotten seats in Germany's parliament, but you know, that's it. That's pretty much all I got to say about that.
Is stronger now than it was 4 years ago?
I think not being dependent on Russia. Germany has all sorts of problems, and many of them are domestic to their own politics. Hold on, let me finish. I'm trying to...
No, but what you're saying, it doesn't... Germany seems so much weaker now that its energy costs have spiked and the manufacturing sector is collapsing because of that.
Let me finish. I'm focused on America's interest. I don't want Russia stronger because I believe Russia is our enemy. You and I disagree on that. We can talk about that. But I want our enemies weaker. I don't want to go to war with Russia, but I want our enemies weaker. I don't want Europe dependent on Russia. I don't want Putin rich with oil and gas revenues and able to invest in his military and pose a threat to America. So the sanctions legislation that I authored, it passed. Putin stopped building Nord Stream 2 literally the day that President Trump signed my sanctions legislation into law. He signed it, if I remember right, at 7 p.m. on a Thursday. Putin stopped construction at 6:45 p.m. So the sanctions legislation worked, and it killed the pipeline. The pipeline lay dormant for over a year, just a hunk of metal at the bottom of the ocean. Joe Biden came into office. He was sworn in on January 20th, 2021. Putin resumed deep-sea construction of Nord Stream 2 4 days later, January 24th. He did so because Biden had foreshadowed weakness on this issue. That foreshadowing was accurate because several months later, Biden formally waived the sanctions on Nord Stream 2 and let Putin complete the pipeline. In January of 2022, I forced a vote on the Senate floor to reimpose sanctions on Nord Stream 2. The week of the vote, President Zelensky in Ukraine publicly called on the Senate, please pass this sanctions legislation. It is the last best hope of stopping Russia from invading Ukraine. At the same time, the government of Poland put out a formal statement from the foreign ministry to the Senate, calling on the Senate to pass my sanctions legislation, and said, if you do not, Putin will invade Ukraine. The day of the vote, Joe Biden came to Capitol Hill. It's the first time in his presidency he had done that. He went to the Democrat senators' lunch, and he personally lobbied them on this issue, not any other issue. This was his number one issue that he came to lobby them on. They came out of that lunch. Every Democrat had voted with me twice against Nord Stream 2. 44 Democrats flipped their vote. They voted in favor of Russia, in favor of Putin, and 4 weeks later, Russia invaded Ukraine. That was the direct cause of the war. And if Trump had been president, there would be no war in Ukraine.
So may I ask, I, of course, disagree with your analysis completely, but I want to be respectful.
Okay. So tell me what you disagree with.
It's such a long conversation. I've spent the last couple of years on this, and I just respectfully disagree with your analysis. But I don't doubt your sincerity that you believe that Putin is our enemy, that Western Europe should not be allowed to use Russian energy. I mean, you seem to really believe these things. My question is about results, because I think it's relevant to what we're seeing now in Iran. You look back after having you personally voted to send billions and billions and billions of U.S. tax dollars to Zelensky to support his civil service in the war against Russia and all this stuff. Can you say that what you did worked?
So I can say what I did personally, sanctioning Nord Stream 2 worked and prevented a war. And if Trump had still been there, if the sanction had been in effect, there would be no war. I'm in favor of avoiding wars.
But once the war broke out, you voted to fund it to the tune of billions and billions and billions.
And to be clear.
And did that work?
Okay, to be clear, what I voted for the initial tranche of funding, and then I voted against the subsequent one. So it hasn't worked. So I've been in between. I haven't been on the full Ukraine, full-throated hawk side or the anti from day one. I voted for the initial tranche of funding because I wanted Russia to lose. I think the Biden administration administered it in a horrible way. I think they wasted a ton of money. And I think what they did was actually incoherent because they were funding both sides of the war. I was very vocal. And among other things, flooding $100 million to Iran, which was used, among other things, to help the nuclear program, but also to make drones that Russia used to fight.
So here's my concern. I'm not going to defend the Biden administration. Really did a lot to wreck the United States.
Yeah, the most damaging administration
at the end,
in history.
where we sit now, Russia is stronger. It's closely allied long-term with China.
I don't know that Russia's stronger. I don't think that's right.
Okay. I think it's pretty obvious that it is. But it's certainly not destroyed, and it's allied long-term with China.
Maybe. There's no doubt Biden's foreign policy drove Russia into the arms of China, and that's concerning. Okay. They also have a long history of animosity.
Western Europe is weaker and more in debt. The United States is weaker and much more in debt.
Look,
hold on. So
you and I are agreeing on a lot.
We're agreeing. Here's my question. Have you questioned any of your previous assumptions? Did you play any role in this at all? Are you responsible at all?
Of course, and like you said...
What have you learned?
Like you said you've changed your mind.
Yeah,
I voted for the first funding of the Ukraine war, and I voted against every subsequent funding stream because it wasn't working. And I looked at what was happening and said, this is not working. And had the money been spent in an intelligent way and not wasted, and had it been successful, I might have been willing to fund more. But it wasn't successful, so I voted no. And the war's going to end. Look, President Trump campaigned on ending the war. I think he's frustrated because Putin has been less than eager to reach a deal to end the war, but it's going to end. You're not going to see another dollar coming from Congress.
Do you think Zelensky wants to end the war?
I think Zelensky has behaved horribly. I think his Oval Office meeting will go down in history as the worst Oval Office meeting of any leader that has ever come to the Oval Office. I think he behaved like a pompous ass. And I think he is unrealistic. I think Zelensky spends his time with Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer in the New York Times, and he believed he was going to the Oval Office as a resist figure. And I think he's doing real damage to his country right now.
You described him many times as a hero.
I don't recall ever using the word hero. I will say, look, I'm not a Zelensky cheerleader, and I'm not in the business of saying everyone we support has to be a saint and everyone we oppose has to be a villain. I'm not in the morality game. I'm in the U.S. interest game. Why did I want Nord Stream 2 stopped? Because it would strengthen Russia, and Russia's our enemies. It's entirely U.S. interest.
Did you support the industrial sabotage against it, blowing it up?
So I think you believe America did that. Is that right?
Of course.
Okay, I think the chances of that are zero.
You think Russia did it?
No, I think Ukraine did it. Okay, so I don't know. So I don't know who did it.
So,
in terms,
they're talking. Hold on, they're talking about something interesting right now. To me, anyway. It's all speculative. Who the fuck knows? The reality is that it's highly likely that America had involvement in it, but like obviously Ukrainians carried it out. I don't know what else to say. They're talking about the pipeline.
Yeah.
For gas.
Yeah, no,
they blew it up.
We sent like Black Ops and shit in there.
Nah, I don't know about that. See, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think that, like, America definitely had involvement in it, funded it, provided resources for it, whatever, guns, whatever they needed. They were like, let's go. Okay, but they were like, look, we can't have... America is pussy when it comes to involvement with direct action against Russia. And I don't know, the day that she isn't anymore, the day that our country isn't anymore, will probably mean very little, honestly, knowing our country. It'll probably have very little symbolic meaning behind it. But anyway, it will inevitably, like everything else that our country seems to be doing,
like
spell
years.
The end. Yeah.
In like 30 years, whenever Abrams still hasn't been replaced, Russians are still using something based on the T-72.
I just think that, look, America, I just think that we can't keep getting away with it. It's impossible. It's impossible. That's what I think. Like, we just need to, like, own up to it and move along. That's it. And try to pay reparations to whoever's still alive that we haven't killed. What else are we to do?
Coup.
What? Coup? No, the military won't do that. They won't do it. Whatever faction of the military tries to do that, they will get squashed immediately. I don't think that's an option.
I don't know. Red Army did it.
I don't know about working in the system, but I also don't know about what rules to break within the system that are both appropriate and also not punishable by treason. So I'm just not going to do any illegal shit. Or, I don't know, I'm probably breaking some fucking laws. Did you know that, like, every American is committing a felony every week? That's what I've heard. Let me ask the AI. Some people say that the average American commits a felony every week. Is this accurate? It's a provocative idea popularized by civil liberties attorney Harvey Silvergate in his book 3 Felonies a Day. He argues that due to the vast number of vague and overlapping federal laws, the average American unknowingly commits several felonies daily, often without malicious intent.
I think I'm committing a felony like every 3 days.
It's an interesting idea. I remember my English teacher talking about this. It's not literally accurate in a statistical sense. The phrase is more of a warning about how easy it is to run afoul of the law in modern America. Interesting. All right. Anyway, back to the Tucker Carlson. The
theories that have been put out there. The idea that Russia blew up their own pipeline never made any sense to me at all. That just I can't even articulate why they would do that.
Which is only
the idea that Biden did that. Look, I could see it being in U.S. interest to do that, to blow up Nord Stream 2. I just think Biden was too weak. I don't believe Joe Biden.
But are you in? I guess you in.
So that leaves
the Norwegians, the the Ukrainians, NATO, whatever.
Look, that leads me to, you know, who benefits? And it leads me to think either the Ukrainians blew it up or Ukraine's allies. I don't think Biden did because Biden was so weak, I don't think he would give the order. I find that implausible.
But you're in favor of it.
Look, I was in favor of stopping it. I think blowing it up was a good thing. So I'm supportive of that, but I don't think America did that. I don't think Biden gave that order.
But in general,
I can see Trump giving that order, but he wasn't in office.
Yeah, and you think that the largest act of industrial sabotage in history helped our allies in Western Europe or other fellow NATO members?
Look, I got to say, I don't understand. For some reason, you are really invested in defending Russia, and I don't get that. I'm not attacking you with that. I'm genuinely, like, I don't get why you're so passionate about defending Russia.
Actually, I was defending Western Europe.
Yeah, look, our country isn't the only guilty party in doing this, but the aiding and abetting in foreign military action, like, it always sucks. It, like, why do we keep doing that? And it's it's always the, like, right-wing, like, racist or nationalist faction of the country. That's crazy. Why do we keep doing that? I don't know.
The home of my ancestors, and that you know, tripling their energy costs and destroying their industrial base. Not like. You just accused me of being an anti-Semite, an isolationist, and a Russia-lackey. I've not called you a neocon once, which you are.
But
I haven't said
that's absurd. Yeah, those neocons that oppose the Iraq War.
Right.
But like that's
okay. But I haven't called you that because name calling.
You just said which you are. You just called that.
Okay.
Called me that. You just did.
I guess what I'm saying is you're triggered because I use name calling. I get it. I was triggered when you called me names, and I'm triggered once again that you're calling me a Russia defender when in fact I'm defending Western Europe. And I don't think that you.
Do you think Putin's our enemy?
Well, he's literally our enemy. You are funding a war against him.
Do you think he is our... No, you're saying we're his enemy. Do you think Putin is our enemy?
I think it is a tragedy that your policies, specifically yours, helped drive Putin into the arms of China, forming a bloc that's larger than us.
So you won't answer that question?
I don't. He is literally our enemy right now. That is a tragedy for the United States.
No, you're saying... But you won't say he is our enemy. Look, like I
know in what sense? I don't want to be enemies with Russia. It doesn't help us at all. It may help some people in the United States, but in general,
let me be clear,
I don't want to be.
I don't want to be at war with Russia. I don't think it is in our interest to be at war with Russia.
With China. That is a disaster.
But listen, no doubt, and I want Russia and China attention, so I agree with you there. But I think Putin is a KGB thug. I think he is a bad man. Now, I don't want to go to war with him over that.
Okay.
But I'm not naive, and like I watched your episode.
He's a bad man.
That was a shit show.
Look, I watched your episode where you went to the Russian grocery store, and
was that disloyal? Do you think?
No.
It was just weird. It was like a promo video for Russia. I don't understand.
I'm
not attacking you when I ask why, because I'm genuinely like I don't get
when you call me an anti-Semite. You weren't attacking me. You were just noticing.
No,
but may I ask you a question
once
too?
Again with the apocalypse, Jenny, with the apocalypse
well, let me just answer
scenarios.
By saying the United States, the Biden administration, with your help, full support, began this war on Russia.
I'm sorry.
In response to their invasion of Ukraine. And one of the things was they kicked Russia out of SWIFT, out of the international financial system. And my first response was,
I can't finish this. I'll finish the last 5 minutes later. All right, guess what? I've had it up this entire time.
This is going to really hurt the U.S. dollar, which it has. And I hope someday we can have a conversation about that. It's really, really hurt the one thing that we needed, which was to retain dollar supremacy. So I was interested in the economic condition.
By the way, that's a reasonable point and a serious conversation.
I'm aware. And
but I can agree with you. Like
no. But I was accused of being. I think it's weird that you went to a Russian grocery store and said it was prosperous. No, my point is
it looked like a commercial. It looked like a commercial. Isn't this wonderful?
No, it was an argument against the efficacy of sanctions. Sanctions against Russia, which you casually and enthusiastically imposed, scoring a little moral victory every time, had no material effect that helped the United States. Russia is backstopped by China, and I recommend that you go there and see it. It is way nicer than Washington, D.C. Way nicer. To me, that's a tragedy. I was horrified and angry at my leaders, including you. It's like, I want to live in a country that's nice, with low food costs and no homeless people. I don't understand why that's too much to ask.
So do
Instead,
I.
I get wars with Iran. No, I just want lower food costs. How's that?
So, look, it's a weird argument that you do often, which is, listen, things are crappy in America. Liberals have done bad things to America, so we shouldn't worry about any enemies around the world.
Republican senators. They don't care about us. They're focused on other countries.
You wrote that
and our country is dying, and you don't care because you're focused on Iran or Putin.
So you believe that I don't care about America. I guess you believe Donald Trump doesn't either. Like nobody cares.
I believe that your focus is way too on other countries.
Tucker Carlson is only on the cusp of this shit. Basically, he's saying, like, why does our country always be going to war and killing people and doing secret operations and sending militia groups money and manufacturing arms and selling them. Oh, wait. Don't say that. You can't say that. And he never will say it. Okay, but that's the real reason. That's the real reason that we're always in conflicts with other countries. Is because we have to sell arms. We are an arms manufacturing country. That's what we do. That's like our whole thing. And if there's no war, it's not profitable.
Way too focused outward. The money that you send abroad could be used here and should be.
What money that I send abroad, by the way, I emphatically agree with
Ukraine. You don't even know.
I emphatically agree with Donald Trump's, for example, dramatically slashing USAID. I think the only reason we should be deploying that is to benefit U.S. interest, national security interest, and keep Americans safe. And so,
how much did you vote to send to Ukraine?
Look, you're in about $80 billion.
$80 billion.
Yeah. So you're in. You love just giving these broad characterizations that are not accurate. I'm genuinely puzzled. Look, I don't want to go to war with Russia, but I don't think they're our friend. I think Putin...
I agree.
I think Putin is a murderer. I think he's a liar. And I think he does not wish well on America.
Okay.
And there's a difference between saying that, just like Reagan referred to the Soviet Union as an evil empire, and Putin was in the KGB. Look, my father was imprisoned and tortured in Cuba. I hate communists. It was actually Batista that tortured my dad. My aunt was imprisoned and tortured by Castro. I hate communists. I think communism is evil. And so I think there is a value to, there is nobody who stands up to communist China more in the Senate than I do, because I think they're evil. Do I want to go to war with China? Of course not. That would be ridiculous. But I think we have all sorts of tools to stand up to our enemies. And I think China is engaged in a 1,000-year war against the United States. Okay. They're trying to defeat us.
We're so all over the map. We're your family in prison in Cuba and China and all this stuff. I agree with you. I'm totally opposed to communism, always have been. I don't think that Putin loves us. I'm distressed by the moral condition of most leaders around the world, most of them. They all kill people. I'm against that. I'm just saying, I wish the focus here was more on the United States. Can I say something?
I actually don't agree with that statement. They all kill people. There's a moral relativism. So I don't think Donald Trump is a murderer. He doesn't kill people. We don't have concentration camps.
Donald Trump a murderer.
You just said world leaders all kill people, and there's a moral relativism.
I'm hardly a moral relativist.
But you are. That statement was the essence of...
I'm an anti-Semite, an isolationist, a moral relativist. Okay. No, I'm not.
Did you just say world leaders all kill people?
I'm saying I'm against killing people in general. And hyperventilating about how Putin was in the KGB or whatever. I just want to serve American interests, and pushing into China is not in our interest at all. And you helped do it, and you haven't apologized. And,
and by the way, you're the cheerleader. I helped drive him into China. It's a complete lie.
You funded the war against him.
No, I authored the legislation that shut down Nord Stream 2 that prevented the war. And if Trump had still been in the White House, we would have had the war. And look, the comment you made, the reason things like moral relativism are so dangerous, everyone kills people. No, there is a difference. The United States, we don't have concentration camps. We don't torture and murder people. You look at China, where they've got 1 million prisoners in concentration camps. You look at Putin.
We don't torture and murder people. Okay. What is Guantanamo Bay then? Let's ask the AI. What is Guantanamo Bay? A U.S. naval base on the southern eastern coast of Cuba. It's most infamously known for the Guantanamo Bay detention camp, often called Gitmo. I've never heard that before. The detention facility was I always heard it as I always just heard it referred to as Guantanamo Bay. I've never heard anyone call it the detention camp or whatever the fuck that is. What makes it so controversial is that many detainees were held without formal charge or trial, and the U.S. government initially argued that constitutional protections and international laws, like the Geneva Conventions, didn't apply there because it was outside U.S. territory. Interesting. Reports of torture, indefinite detention, and lack of due process sparked global outrage and legal challenges. At its peak, the camp held nearly 800 detainees. As of early 2025, only 15 remain. Interesting. They still got people there. So, violations of the Geneva Convention, which include torture, indefinite detention, let me remind you what Ted Cruz just said.
Kills people. No, there is a difference. The United States, we don't have concentration camps. We don't torture and murder people. You look at China, where they've got 1 million prisoners in concentration camps. You look at Putin, where he's got prisoners in Siberia. He tortures and murders his political opponents. Donald Trump doesn't do that. America doesn't do that. And by the way,
what are you even
most other countries don't do that.
I see the game. It's like, I'm distressed. I'm distressed.
No, I'm responding with facts. You don't like the facts.
I don't even know what facts you're talking about. I'm not saying that Trump puts people in concentration camps. I campaign for Trump. I love Trump.
So did I.
Okay, so this has nothing to do with Trump. I'm merely saying
you said every world leader kills people. It puts them
more emphasis on what's happening inside the country. That's it.
Is there a moral difference between America and our enemies? Is there a moral difference between America?
Of course.
And what is it? Articulate it. It's valuable to say why. Why are we a better country founded on better values than China?
What's the difference? I'll tell you why.
And I know
because the whole purpose of America is to protect the God-given rights that each person possesses by virtue of being created by God.
Amen.
By being human. That's the point of our founding documents. And no other country articulates that in the way that we do. And that's what I love about America. My family's been here a long time. I'm never leaving. So I really love the country. Despite going to a Russian grocery store, despite asking you questions about AIPAC, I love America is the truth. And I love Trump. But I just want more emphasis on America. That's it.
I emphatically agree with America first. I think Donald Trump does as well. And I think his foreign policy has been vigorously protecting that. And I agree with the president.
Good. Well, I appreciate your taking all this time.
Sure.
And I know you didn't mean it. But you called me those names. Thank you, Senator. So it turns out that you